Joining us tonight is Jake Rattlesnake.
I like to go by Lord Rattlesnake or Lord Jake, most base chat of all the lands.
You don't have an argument. Present your paper or shut up.
Everyone's view is definitely inherently biased. So this is when debate becomes very interesting.
I can hear what you're saying, and I can see that you're dressed as a cat.
I'm a dog.
You said you like to go play fetch.
I'm a wolf, yes.
So how does that tie into your relationship? Like, what are you looking for if you're a dog? Yeah, I think that John Jr. will be president one day. If I was a gambling man, I'd put money on that.
Founder of Rattlesnake TV, Jake.
Man, I really appreciate it, dude.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Rattlesnake TV debate night. We've got a great one for you today. We have got Adam Khan representing the Democrat side and Matt Nuclear representing the Republican side. You may recognize these gentlemen from some recent Jubilee videos that have gone pretty viral, and they're going to be debating about political violence. Is it worse on the left or is it worse on the right? Is that right? Did I get that prompt right? Adam?
I think radicalism.
Or radicalism in general, but yeah.
Radicalism, is it worse on the left or is it worse on the right? Is it worse with the Republicans or is it worse with the Democrats? So we'll just quickly get you guys to introduce yourselves for those of you who haven't met you before, starting with Adam.
Sure. I'm Adam. I'm a progressive political commentator. I do news and debates as well. You can find me on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and pretty much anywhere else where people talk about that stuff.
And Matt?
Yeah, I'm a right-wing conservative political commentator. You can find me on TikTok. I do live debates pretty much daily. You can find me on X, Matt Nuclear. You can find me on Instagram, YouTube, all of that.
Fantastic. Without further ado, we'll kick it over to Bruce.
And now, for the thousands in attendance, let's get ready to rumble!
Okay, fellas, the rules of the debate are going to be 5-minute opening statements. Adam, you are going to start the opening statements. Matt, you will go second. And then when we're closing off the closing statements, Matt, you'll go first. And Adam, you'll get the last word. If at any point you guys feel as though you need to appeal to the moderator, if somebody is over talking too much, or if you feel like your questions aren't getting answered, or if you feel like the conversation's getting derailed away from the point, then you can feel free to appeal to myself. And with that, Adam, you got 5 minutes on the clock.
Cool. So when we're talking about which party's radicalism poses a greater threat to this country, I think there's an obvious answer there. I can only think of one political party in this country that has put people in handcuffs for expressing opinions they don't like. I can only think of one political party in this country that has punished people for following the law and exalted people for breaking the law. It's the Republican Party. Under Donald Trump, the radicals are not the fringe. The radicals are not just a faction on the rise. The radicals are the establishment. These aren't people who want slightly different tax rates or modest reforms to existing programs. They're anti-American lunatics. People who see the Constitution as a roadblock rather than a roadmap. People who attempted a coup in 2020 and have plans to do it again. People who on a daily basis are desecrating what it means to be American. What Matt would call radicalism in the Democratic Party is still a relatively small group. This is a handful of elected officials in a sea of moderate and center-left politicians. And when they do come to power, like Bernie or AOC, their actual influence is watered down by the party apparatus and the political process, which they actually abide by, unlike Trump. So even if I granted Matt's ridiculous premise that the Democratic radical ideology is somehow more dangerous than MAGA's ideology, only one of these groups actually has power. But I don't grant your premise, Matt. The radical elements of the Democratic Party have plenty of great ideas. Single-payer healthcare, paid leave for new parents, infrastructure projects. These are all good for our country. I know you were very eager to talk about Zoran Mamdani specifically, but even there, your claim holds no water. I noticed the right loves to speak out of both sides of their mouth here. Apparently, Mamdani is a dangerous radical who's going to change everything, but he also can't get anything done. You can't have both. And let's be honest, there is nothing dangerous or radical about increasing housing supply or raising taxes on the wealthy or reforming the permit process to help small businesses. At worst, a couple of his policies are what I would call suboptimal. Not radical, not dangerous, and certainly not anything near the insanity coming from the White House and the modern Republican Party.
Okay. My turn?
All right. That was 2 minutes, but if you cede your time, Matt, you've got 5 minutes on the clock.
Yeah, no, I mean, when it comes to political radicalism, we've seen obviously a 1,000% increase in violence against ICE in this country. We've seen people gearing up tactical gear and attacking ICE facilities. We obviously saw the political assassination of Charlie Kirk. There was actually a study done recently by the CSIS that came out. If we're talking about recency and radicalism recency, leftism has been the most violent, right? And this is a record high. We're seeing what has been going on with the Antifa attacks, right? When it comes to Zoran Mamdani specifically, because you've mentioned Zoran Mamdani, I mean, the ridiculousness when it comes to the contradiction of we are going to expand the housing market whilst also disincentivizing the building of new units makes absolutely no sense. If I am going to be rent stabilized, there's going to be a rent freeze. I have no incentive to build. Okay, the reason why I don't have an incentive to build is because I can't recoup the costs. This is the reason why a lot of landlords have vacancies in New York. Do you think it's intelligent to want to be a landlord that has a vacancy for no reason? The reason why it's vacant is because they can't afford to, one, renovate it and then recoup the costs through rent. They just can't do it. Okay, you can't be pro-business and propose a $30 minimum wage. That's stupid. Okay, the issue with minimum wage is that leftists like to say, well, if we increase the minimum wage, people will be able to afford everything. Well, if I now have to pay a random crew member at McDonald's $30 an hour, guess what? I'm going to also have to probably increase prices or lay off workers. So is that really pro-business when prices increase with their wage? That doesn't really make much sense either. The government-owned grocery store plan is pretty radical. It's been tried in the Soviet Union, Romania, North Korea, Cuba, Venezuela. It absolutely sucks. Empty shelves, people running around with tasers. We saw in Kansas City, Missouri, they allocated $17 million in city funds for a government-owned grocery store, completely collapsed. And by the way, you can't be pro-business and support government-owned grocery stores. If I'm a small business and I have a profit margin of 1 or 2%, and I have a government-owned grocery store opening up next to me that pays no property taxes, according to Zoran Mamdani, okay, and is selling items below market price, I lose customers. That's not pro-business. Okay, so all of Zoran Mamdani's policies are horrible, and the idea that if you increase taxes, it's going to inevitably lead to higher tax revenue is also economically illiterate. That's not proven true. There's something called the Laffer curve that was proven by Arthur Laffer. What ends up happening is tax rates at 0% obviously generate zero revenue, and tax rates at 100% generate zero revenue. And if you bring them even higher, 90, 80, 70%, guess what? That's going to disincentivize people making that sort of money. People can leave. We live in a free society. Okay, so radicalism has been very, prominent when it comes to the left in general. We've seen what's been going on with ICE. We've seen what's been going on in Chicago and all these big cities. We're seeing the calling for the abolition of ICE because of what? Because they're enforcing immigration law and 8 U.S. Code 1325. You can't illegally enter this country. You guys haven't been assassinating political figures. Apparently Democrats are more likely to support political violence and political attacks. So yeah, the violence has been very much prominent with the left. And we can also talk about Epstein, because I know everyone wants to talk about it. What about Stacey Plaskett, getting messages from Jeffrey Epstein during a House Oversight Committee hearing and taking instructions on how to, interrogate Michael Cohen, right? What about Hakeem Jeffries, the quote, New York City's Obama, who tried to get a dinner with Jeffrey Epstein, his campaign tried to get him to have a dinner with Jeffrey Epstein, even 4 years after he was convicted of, soliciting, prostitution from a minor. I mean, we can really talk about all of those things. You guys have been the most violent recently. It's a simple fact. Leftism and left political violence is higher than right wing right now. You guys are the one calling for political violence. You guys are the one attacking ICE, getting on tops of roofs. Let me mention this last thing. There was a person in Texas about 2 months ago who got on top of a roof and tried to snipe at ICE agents. He killed, I believe, 2 migrants or something. Okay, that is the political violence that we're seeing. These guys are so dumb and have such bad aim that they're killing migrants whilst trying to shoot at ICE agents. This is the political radicalism in this country. None of what we're proposing is radical. It's common sense, free market policy. Okay, let's go to all of your. And by the way, if you want to have the single payer household, the single payer universal healthcare system that you want, let's just increase taxes on the middle and middle income Americans by 30-40%. Because that's what happens in Scandinavian countries. They have something called a VAT tax, which disproportionately takes money from lower income people. So that's also something. But yeah.
Just before we carry on, I do want to get a sort of definition from both of you about what you consider radicalism to be. So maybe starting with you, Adam, what is radicalism?
Sure. So I actually think typically in colloquial terms, when we use the word radical, it has a negative connotation. I don't think radicalism necessarily has to be negative. I think radicalism is just going to be a big paradigm shift, a massive overhaul in the socio-political structures that are in place. So for example, during the abolition of slavery, I'm sure that was considered radical as well, but it was undoubtedly a good thing. So when we're talking about radicalism, we're talking about massive paradigm shifting change. And then the point of this debate, I think, is to talk about which parties, factions, which want paradigm shifting change are representing more of a threat to the country.
Okay, and Matt?
My definition of radical is going to be, one, you have to have a political strain, so left or right, in which you want to make drastic, unintelligent, anti-intellectual policy, right? So the Khmer Rouge under Cambodia's communist regime trying to have an agrarian society that killed over 250,000 people. Radicalism, whether it's left or right, falls into trying to have a drastically insane idea of how to have a society that is not functionable, that is not proven to be adequate. I believe that is radicalism in general. And by the way, I don't believe that ending slavery, the abolition movement, was ever at all radical. I mean, the thing is, 9 out of 13 colonies actually banned slavery, and the majority of our founding fathers were actually very much anti-slavery. So the idea that it's radical is absolutely silly. It was never a radical
We did
idea.
fight a
Maybe in the
civil war
South.
about that, but okay.
All right, I think that's probably the best place to kick it off, just so you guys can actually agree on the definition of radicalism or come to some sort of a semantic agreement here, just so that we can move on with it. And we've got 60 minutes of open dialogue. If you can't get past this, that's fine, but maybe that's a good place to start it.
Sure. I mean, I'm if you want to agree that radicalism is just massive socio-political change, we can do that, or do you not agree with that?
It can be massive social and political change, but that can be negative and positive. But
Sure, I
typically, the
agree.
radicalism that we're talking about is negative. Like the radical political change that the far right wants is very negative to you, and the radical political change that the Democrats, or at least the Democrat electorate that is young, currently wants is very much negative.
Right, I agree. The connotation of radicalism is typically negative. I'm just saying that when we're defining it, it doesn't necessarily have to be negative. I think the point of
has
this
to be,
debate
I
is to talk about the radical elements of the opposite party representing a threat. So I don't know that we disagree on the definition, but
No, we don't really disagree on the definition. I think when you say representing a threat, I agree with that. It has to be representing some sort of an imminent threat that we see. It has to be policies that we know have been historically bad, given fascism, given communism, given the consequences of both political actions. So when we have any party try to have some sort of embodiment or acceptance of either or, that is going to be considered radicalism, just like what Zoran Mamdani is proposing by seizing the means of production, right?
cool. Yeah, I think we generally agree. Then on
Yeah,
the
I think that that's
definition.
good.
Hung
I
up
think
on
that
it.
we can definitely work with those definitions. So with that, fellas, the floor is yours.
Matt, I'm really curious when you talk about these like radical policies from Zoran Mamdani.
Sure.
Even if I was to grant for a second your premise that these are horrible, evil, destructive policies, right now these are just bullet points on his website. He's still the mayor-elect, and again, do you think he's going to be able to implement these things? Or
You know what you
is it
sound
just,
like? You
the
know what you sound
ideas are
like right now,
radical?
though? You know what you sound like? You sound like,
How about answering the
Democrat.
question instead of telling
Oh,
me what I sound like?
I'm going to answer your question.
Okay.
Right. So this is the whole game of, well, he's only elect right now. We can see what policies he's proposing and why they're
Mhm.
evil and wrong. And let's not pretend that
Evil.
me and you are both young. I think you're like 24, 23. I'm 19.
24
We know
tomorrow.
right. We know for a fact that he is very popular amongst our age group, right?
Mhm.
And people have been supporting him, like Bernie Sanders, AOC, Rashida Tlaib, all of these people. So he's very popular. And no, I don't want to do this whole thing where he's just a Democratic elect. Like, that means nothing to me. I don't care about him being the mayoral elect. What's important to me is his policies are horrible, and he wants to run the largest city in the country and the economics, capital of the world with horrible anti-business policy.
I didn't get an answer to my question. If his policies are so horrible, are you implying that all of them are going to be implemented?
I'm not implying that all of them are going to be implemented, but I think that's not necessarily a good argument. Like, there can be a difference between what you are able to do and what you're proposing. Like, do you not think that Nick Fuentes is still bad, although he probably will never get into power? He is bad,
I do.
right? Like,
Although
this
I
whole
think he
argument
probably
of,
will
like,
get into
well,
power, but
this whole right, he will never get into power, obviously. But this whole argument of, like, well, he may not be able to do all of his really bad policy doesn't change from the fact that people listen to his
I just
policies
want to
and they think
remind
they're
you of the
actually good.
prompt. I just want to remind you the prompt poses a greater threat to this country. When I talk about MAGA radicalism, I'm not just talking about things they've
scapegoating.
proposed. I'm talking about things that have taken place in this country with Mamdani.
Yeah, what has taken place
I
in
don't
this
like the
country.
government grocery store idea. That's one thing where I think he's wrong. But I
$30
don't think he's gonna be able to
$30
do
minimum
that.
wage. The minimum wage should be $0, right? So another thing, radicalism on our end is 1.6 million people self-deporting, getting $1,000 from the DHS for self-deporting.
No.
Self-deport, that's radicalism. Over
No.
400,000 people being removed from this country is apparently like radicalism to you.
No,
If you
radicalism on
illegally
your
enter
end
this
is people
country,
being
you are going to be
arrested and
deported.
put
None of
in
that is
handcuffs.
radicalism.
Hold on. Radicalism on your end is people being put in handcuffs for expressing opinions. That's
Like,
radicalism.
are you going to
on
mention
your end.
Mahmoud Khalil?
Mahmoud Khalil and Ramesh Ozturk, yeah.
Right, so when it comes to Mahmoud Khalil, are we going to talk about the fact that he was leading violent encampments where Jewish students were literally
He
being
was not.
attacked at
And, I
universities?
mean, you
Are we
can-
going to talk about the organization that he worked for was proven to actually indirectly support Hamas and provide material support for Hamas? Listen, I forget the exact U.S. code for this, but Secretary of State has the right to revoke a visa.
Nope.
No, he does. I can bring up the law. He has
In
the
the
right to revoke a
situation
visa
of Mahmoud
under
Khalil,
under certain
we don't
situations.
have to debate this. A Reagan-appointed judge, Bill Young, has adjudicated this case and said that the Trump administration purposefully launched a full-throated attack on the First Amendment and unconstitutionally curbed the free speech rights of pro-Palestinian activists, and it was done to strike fear and create a chilling effect. A
Yeah, it was not
conservative
done to
federal
strike
judge
fear at all.
has already ruled this. First
Yeah, it's
Amendment
fine.
violation,
And a
clear as day.
a judge also previously ruled that he was ought to be deported. So I mean, different judges can have different opinions on how
Deported on the
certain things-
basis of what?
Right, on the basis that he actually lied when it came to his application for a visa.
They wanted to
so
deport him
when
because
you
he was
have a vi-
pro-Palestinian.
well, hold on, let me finish. When you
Go ahead.
apply for a visa in this country, specifically when it comes to I want to study at this university and do this, and you lie about what your ambitions are, and you start up encampments and you start promoting terrorism and designated terrorist organizations in the Middle East, and you're attacking Jewish students having encampments in this country, of course you are going to be deported, or at least the
Interesting.
Secretary of State is going to want to deport you. And by the way, I believe the Constitution should most apply to citizens. Do you think any of our founding fathers would give two F's about a guy named Mahmoud Khalil who is from Libya or Palestine, wherever?
I go based off the Constitution, not based on Matt Nuclear's conjecture of what the founding fathers would have thought.
It's not my conjecture of what the founding fathers would have thought. We're talking
and
about
again, a judge has adjudicated this, so you can, I guess,
you
can
disagree. You can disagree with you. Hold on. That's you trying to do this whole judge authority now is pretty silly, because you can disagree with the opinions of judges. I mean, I'm pretty sure you disagree with the Supreme Court that is majority conservative, right? 6-9 conservative. So you disagree.
Depends on
with
the case.
Do you disagree with Roe v. Wade's overturning?
On a constitutional basis, I think it probably makes sense, but on a political level, I don't like that it was overturned.
Right, exactly. There you go. The same way that I disagree with the judge's decision, specifically when it comes to Mahmoud Khalil, although I can still recognize that I believe he was a person that should be deported. If I was the king of America, I would
all of these things you
him.
just brought up about Mahmoud Khalil, he's like a terrorist. He's going after the Jewish people.
He was part of an organization that funded Hamas and support and provided material support for Hamas.
Or accused of any crime. There's no secret here. There was
so this is what you're not understanding.
There were leaked memos from the State Department. This was done on the basis of political opinion.
No, I wasn't. Right. So another important thing is people always mention the fact that, well, he wasn't directly charged. Yeah, because you're gonna have to go through all sorts of mounting evidence, and if you charge him and if you charge him with something and you arrest him, right? Hold on. Let's make something really simple, because you guys don't tend to understand this. If you charge someone with something and you arrest them and they end up getting convicted in this country, they have to stay in this country. The goal was not to keep Mahmoud Khalil in the country. The goal was to recognize, okay, he was part of an organization which provided material support to Hamas. Let's deport this guy instead of giving him. Charging him or potentially not getting a conviction because you have some sort of
because he didn't do any crimes,
plausibility there.
What crimes did Mahmoud Khalil commit?
Did I mention a crime, or did I mention the fact that he was associated?
You just said, they
with
couldn't
an
go through
organization?
the actual process of convicting him and charging him, so they just sped it up and deported him instead. That
Hold on. Because when you arrest Mahmoud Khalil, just think about this for a second, right? He was part of an organization that indirectly supported Hamas. Okay, if you arrest him or try to get a conviction out of that, you may lose or you may win. What's a lot better because the evidence is not complete, right? But what's a lot easier is, given the fact this guy is doing encampments, promoting things like globalizing Intifada, which is a terroristic slogan, just get him deported instead of going through that whole fiasco process where you might not get a conviction because the evidence is not clear and he has this sort of plausibility attached to him.
It seems like you're saying,
but again, it's funny because
he didn't necessarily commit any crimes, but he was kind of undesirable to be here, so we should just kind of kick him
starting
out.
Encampments, starting violence on university campus, right, allowing
Wasn't he literally
Jewish
the mediator between
the
the college administration and the protesters?
No, that actually
he was doing negotiations.
A lot of the time that goes beyond that when students are actually being assaulted for being Jewish. I mean, that's actually the truth about that, right?
These are just very vague allegations. Again,
it's not vague allegations.
All
of
had
those
a chance
things are
to
true.
argue this in court, and they lost. I know you're going to call into question the veracity of the judge's decision here, but I would point this.
You can disagree with certain judges.
I understand, but you have to disagree on the merits. You can't just say, "Oh, I disagree because I disagree." This is a conservative federal judge.
The merits in which, what about the judge that actually ruled that he actually did lie on his visa application, and that was actually the basis for his deportation also?
He didn't lie on his visa application. He didn't mark down unpaid volunteering experience under job experience because unpaid volunteering is not a job.
Well, what about the fact that he didn't write down the fact that he was going to start encampments and start violence on university campuses? What about that?
Is that on your green card application? You have to talk about future encampments you might start?
Well, I'm pretty sure that Americans who have people coming from different countries who want to come to our Ivy League universities and enjoy the best education in the world probably don't want people to come in here who are going to start encampments that promote
protest.
violence. Promote violence against university campuses. Speaking of universities, actually, there was a study done by the NCRI, I'm pretty sure, which showed that universities that take money from Qatar or the Emirates states have a 300% increase in anti-Semitism. Should we talk about that as well?
We can talk about that. It's a complete change of the topic. I can understand if you don't
It's
want
not
to
a
stay on
complete
Mahmoud
change of the
Khalil.
topic.
I
I'm
mean,
talking
you
about
can complain that
right.
he used his First Amendment rights in ways that you don't like, but he still has First Amendment
Not
rights.
a U.S.
There's
citizen, by the way.
There's nothing in the First Amendment that says this only applies to citizens, by the way. It's not in there.
Right,
This
but
word citizen does not appear in the First Amendment.
Well, hold on. I'm pretty curious. Do you think that the First Amendment in the Constitution, the Founding Fathers, in reference to original intent, was more focused on American citizens, people who are actually naturalized here, people who are actually citizens, or people who are on like student visas from foreign countries who want to promote like encampments and stuff like that? Like, I'm sorry, but if someone like Mahmoud Khalil, lived under the Seditious Acts and John Adams, or any of our former presidents or our founding fathers, he would have been immediately deported, starting encampments at universities where he's promoting designated terrorist organizations. The issue that we have with modern day America is we have people like you and the left, which doesn't know how to handle common sense policy. So we have to fight over people like Kilmar Obreger Garcia and Mahmoud Khalil and all these different people who are foreigners. When are you guys going to start fighting for America?
No, the issue is we have people like you who think we can pick and choose who has access to constitutional rights. You asked a very good question about, do you think the Founding Fathers would have wanted this to apply to non-citizens? There are parts of the Constitution that explicitly call out citizens. There are parts that don't. I think that's probably intentional. Right.
What about our
the requirement to run for president says citizen? The First Amendment does not say citizen.
Right. So speaking of law, doesn't seem like your party, with all the respect, really understands a lot of it, because another core problem. I'm sorry, Adam, but you know this. Like we have people from your party, like Rashida Tlaib, coming out and saying, well, being in this country is not illegal, right? Or illegally enter the country is not illegal. 8 U.S. 1325 is U.S. federal law which prohibits illegal entry. So is entering the country illegally a crime?
I mean, it's by the definition you just gave, obviously.
Right. Hold on. So why is it that we're hearing from all of these Democratic lawmakers who are blatantly lying to our faces?
I can explain. You don't have to straw man. I can explain to you the criticisms of ICE that are coming out right now. And it's, for example,
not criticism, but lying about basic
You're
law.
right. I think not just criticism. It's a vicious attack against ICE verbally, as it should be, because ICE, just in the 10 months that Trump... I don't support the physical attacks, obviously.
Well, I'm saying
ICE in just the 10 months that Trump has been in his second term has detained 170 U.S. citizens. Just to put that into perspective, from 2015 to 2020, that entire 5-year period, that number was 121 total. In just 10 months, ICE has detained 170 U.S. citizens at least. Many of these people were detained for days. They were not allowed to call a lawyer. They were not allowed to call their family. Their family didn't even know where they were. So this is clear examples of constitutional rights and civil liberties being violated by ICE. This is not just
just to make something really simple. Just to make something really simple with this whole lying about like not being able to find anyone. There's the ICE detainer locator. If you know your family member's first and last name, you can definitely know exactly where they're located. So in date of birth. So the idea that you can't find out where your family member or whoever detained by ICE is just absolutely a blatant lie. But another core problem that you're failing to understand there is who actually had the record high of non-judicial removals. Do you know? It was under Obama. There was over 315,000 non-judicial removals. Also, just to clarify another thing, who had the record high of non-criminals being deported? Because Obama deported more non-criminals than he actually did criminals. It's funny when you guys like to lie and say that, well, actually, if someone illegally enters the country, as long as they don't commit a crime, don't deport them. Well, it seems like Obama disagreed with that vehemently.
How many citizens did Obama
hold on. Let me finish real quick. Okay.
Yeah.
So in reference to detaining citizens, it can be also an indicator that ICE is working more thoroughly, or at least is more engaged. It's going to make sense that if you are increasing funding for ICE and they are trying to get as many illegal aliens out of the country and they are patrolling certain areas more, that probably a lot of U.S. citizens are going to be not deported, but detained, or at least questioned. That's going to make sense if you have an organization that is working way harder to deport illegal aliens. We're on par to have like 2 million deportations already. Then of course it's going to make absolute sense that more U.S. citizens are going to be detained. But again, what happens is really simple. You get detained, you show your ID, I'm a U.S. citizen, okay, and boom, you're done, you're good. Now, if there's complications with your documentation or papers or anything like that, then that's something different. But you guys are trying to harm ICE. We have leftists coming out and saying that they want to, find out where the children of ICE are living, and you have these like left is saying that ICE shouldn't be masked. Can we agree that ICE should be masked so they don't have issues with doxing, or they don't have issues? Really, right, see, this is your indirect support of political violence.
No, there's been an uptake in kidnappings and robberies from people wearing masks impersonating ICE. I think law enforcement.
No, that's literally never happened. It's literally hardly ever happened. But even it's literally hardly ever happened. But let's take it that it is true. There's also like people who dress up to and pretend to be LAPD. There's people who dress up to be police. Well, not necessarily wearing a mask, but dressing up to be law enforcement officers. Well, ICE
you can identify the person
DHS.
as the
Hold on,
perpetrator. It makes a pretty big difference.
ICE is under the DHS, and they are law enforcement. With all due respect, they are law enforcement enforcing immigration law. So again, there is people who pretend to be police officers. That is not a reason for why we should get rid of people being police officers. There may be
a lot easier
in very
to
rare
impersonate
instances.
an
Hold on.
Masks.
There may be people who pretend. The wearing masks part isn't going to change anything, by the way. Reference to isn't going to make any case better. People can pretend to be ICE whilst wearing masks. I don't get the point. Or not whilst not wearing masks. Again, the point still stands. Whether you're police, whether you're ICE or whatever, people are going to impersonate. People have been
Can we agree
impersonating police. Hold on,
criminals don't want to show their face?
Hold on. Yeah. No, we agree that you should cover up your face so you don't possibly get killed. I mean, what are you talking about? The left will post your face. If you're an ICE, if you're working for a DHS and you're Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement, and you have to tackle someone because they're running away from you, and a left takes a high-resolution picture of your face, and they start posting it online, and someone notices you, someone notices where you live, and now you have people protesting. Someone may try to find you and kill you to prove a point. That is the dangers of trying to enforce basic immigration law. Of course, ICE agents should wear masks to protect their identities, not just themselves, but their families, their homes, their parents, all of those things, right? And not to mention, it's enforced by the DHS.
Hold on a second, fellas. Just one sec. Matt, you made a lot of points there. Which one particularly do you want Adam to respond to?
Right. No,
I can respond to all of them.
I want Adam specifically to respond to the fact that ICE agents have to show a badge, and it is dangerous for themselves if they do not wear a mask to prevent someone from taking a high-resolution image that can possibly endanger their entire family members and their potential future. Yeah.
Let's give Adam some space to air this out now.
ICE agents, like all federal police, are public servants. We don't answer to them. They answer to us. It is a bare minimum requirement to say that if you're conducting a law enforcement operation, you should be able to show your face and your badge as well. Obviously, I will condemn any sort of illegal violence. And it's funny that you bring up these ICE agents, their life is in danger. I don't believe that you actually care about the lives of federal police being put in danger when Trump a couple days ago just pardoned someone who threatened to kill an FBI agent. So we can talk about which party is endorsing how's that a red herring?
Because we're talking about ICE right now. We're not talking about the pardoning of certain people.
What was your point
under
talking
legality?
About ICE?
So hold on, let me respond to this. Let me respond to this really quickly. So of course they serve us, but serving us does not require. I mean, are you requiring that all SWAT units also show their faces? I mean, are you requiring that people who work for the FBI who are under certain specific circumstances and certain behavior that they should all show their faces at all time? Of course not. You can work for us whilst also trying to protect yourself. It's like saying because police officers work for us. Hold on. It's like saying that because police officers work for us, they are never they never should wear bulletproof vests, for example. No, they not only serve us, but we should also take into consideration their livelihood and their well-being, right? The fact that why do we always talk about sending American troops across the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean or their safety? Because we care about American troops. We care about their safety. Now, obviously, they serve us in terms of the country and the nation, but we also care about their safety and their livelihood. We talk about the VA and veteran assistance and all of these things. Why? Because not only are you just someone who serves this country, but you are also someone who should demand at least respect in this country and due diligence in this country in terms of we also respect you back. We also care about the safety of your livelihood and your family whilst you're doing the hardest jobs. So it's both.
Yeah, just to clarify, I'm not arguing against bulletproof vests. I'm not arguing that people who threaten law enforcement shouldn't face legal consequences. I'm just saying they should have to show their face so that when there's abuses of power, as have been taking place for the past 10 months, where again, I never really got a substantive response to my point of citizens not just being detained, but not being allowed to call their lawyers.
Right. You didn't even respond. So we're not even away from this ICE mask argument again, because you haven't really substantiated as to why ICE should show their face. You're saying that, well, when these certain situations happened, DHS is not aware of who's responsible or who is engaged in this specific incident. How do you know?
DHS knows. The media should also know.
Well, the DHS knows. Exactly. The DHS knows. So DHS is going to regulate that. DHS is going to. Well, you don't trust DHS because it's under this administration. That's why you don't trust the DHS, right?
Yes, because this administration is doing it very differently than any previous one. So yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know. 315,000 record high non-judicial removals under Obama say otherwise. But again, the point still stands. If you are ICE, you don't want to show your face, not because you're not identified. And the media has no right to identify who these ICE agents are, by the way. Unless these ICE agents are actually arrested or convicted and there's a mugshot out of them, the media has no right to know who they are. I'm sorry, but I don't trust the modern leftist media to have pictures and names and date of birth of ICE agents. Because of doxing, because of how people are right now. We just had a Chris, I forget his last name. It's like an Italian last name, calling for all ICE agents to be rounded up. We have people calling for the abolition of ICE. These people aren't going to work for ICE forever. I mean, ICE is a job for people who are like maybe 40 and under and stuff like that. So
I just find it interesting.
These people want to hold on. These people want to hold jobs.
These
people want to hold jobs in the future. These people want to hold jobs in the future, and none of that should be negated by the fact that we live in a very incoherent society with people who don't want to enforce immigration laws. So I 100,000% support ICE wearing masks to protect their identity, to protect their families while enforcing immigration laws. And those people who are saying, well, I don't know who they are. I don't know who they are. The DHS knows exactly who they are. If there are cases filed against them, those things will come out. But if there isn't, you have no right to know their identities, because although they're serving us, we should also give them the bare minimum of allowing them to be at peace. Okay?
The bare minimum is saying if you assault or threaten an ICE officer, any federal officer, you should face criminal charges, and they can wear bulletproof vests.
How do you prevent assaults?
Matt, you have to
hold on a second, Matt. You got to let him respond.
It's interesting to me that you're more concerned with the safety of ICE agents than the American citizens who are civilians that have been brutalized by ICE. I mean, there are many cases. You can look up these videos of people who are peacefully protesting, not radical left lunatics. There's a priest who's giving a sermon. There's a woman who's yelling in the face of an ICE agent. They get shot in the face with a pepper ball or with pepper spray. I would like to have accountability. That's why I want transparency. If ICE agents want to wear bulletproof vests, I have no issue with that. I'm not in favor of anyone physically attacking ICE. I think we have a legal process for a reason. And the idea that ICE's comfort and that we need to give them the safety and the mental peace to go around brutalizing people, God forbid someone see their face and take a picture or a video of them engaging in civil rights violations, your priorities here just seem out of whack to me.
Right. So again, what you guys consider evil is not very well known. If someone runs away from ICE and they're caught and they're detained, you guys consider that like vile or evil, and so do the people who are screaming at ICE. You shouldn't be screaming at immigration. You shouldn't be screaming at immigration, customs and enforcement in their face at all. That's not your duty. If you want to protest from,
are you not a First Amendment guy?
If you want to protest from 100 feet away, yeah, there's a difference between obstruction of justice and the First Amendment. There's a reason why obstruction of justice is a thing. Yeah. And a lot of these people, they aren't trying to just express their First Amendment right. They are trying to obstruct justice. There's a difference, Adam. There's a difference between.
I don't know who a lot of these people is. I brought you specific examples.
There's a difference between obstructing justice and the First Amendment. This is something that you're really failing to understand and grasp here. That's something very important. And again, you're talking about, ICE agents being possibly assaulted and how you want people to be convicted for that. That's fine. But how do we prevent more assaults? How do we prevent a situation where an ICE agent is doxxed and is attacked at his home by a bunch of like far left Antifa lunatics? By allowing them to conceal their identities. That's how we protect them to a higher degree. Not with this like proposal that you have that is really vague, but going deeper. If people don't know their names, their date of birth, and their faces, they don't even have the prerequisite to actually be able to identify them and attack them. That's how we protect ICE agents.
I keep running into a constant theme with you here, where your priority is how do we protect the federal police and not how do we protect American citizens who are civilians. Requiring people to show their face is basic transparency and has no real bearing on like the legality of attacking an ICE agent. You can continue to say a lot of these people did this, a lot of these people did that. I gave you specific examples of people who are using their First Amendment rights to peacefully protest, and they were shot with pepper spray or shot with pepper balls. You can say, okay, Lib, but what about a lot of these people? I don't exactly know what that means. I don't know why you refuse to engage with the specific examples I brought up. And I'm noticing a common theme here, Matt, where first you said Mahmoud Khalil, not free speech rights, who cares? People who protest ICE, free speech rights, who cares? And what actually matters is the discretion of the Trump administration and the discretion of these ICE agents to just do whatever they want and fuck the courts, fuck the people, fuck the media. How dare they question that these people are marching around,
how dare you obstruct
and violating their
law.
rights? I mean,
there's a difference,
DOJ just
Adam.
dropped. Matt, you have to
You're
let
not
me
getting
respond,
it
dude.
yet. You're not
You've
getting
been
it.
filibustering for like the past 15 minutes.
That's what
I've
you've
let
been doing.
do
You
it.
didn't respond
have
to what I
let
just
me
said.
respond.
Yeah, we'll let Adam finish the thought,
Then
then Matt, you'll jump in straight away and respond to his point.
And while I will say that obviously I will condemn any act of political violence, I can't say the same from the MAGA side, who don't condemn political violence, who encourage political violence. So if you want to talk about this topic, it's very interesting. I'm going to bring up again that Trump just pardoned someone a couple days ago who was being investigated and was indicted for threatening to kill an FBI agent. The only reason Trump pardoned this person is because they were a January 6th rioter. So of course he has to give them a little wink and nod to say, "Don't worry, I got you covered." This idea that you're so concerned with the safety of federal agents and not the American people that they're meant to serve, you're so concerned with the idea of radicalism, but you're not concerned with the First Amendment or the idea of due process is ridiculous. All I've gotten from you so far is platitudes and Fox News talking points. Every single individual example I've given you, whether it's the number of citizens who have been detained, whether it's specific examples of First Amendment rights being violated, people not being allowed to call their lawyers, you don't even know the cases I'm talking about, but you're so obsessed with defending Trump that without knowing those cases, you say, oh, there must be a good explanation for this.
Okay, great. So let me respond. So again, I already told you earlier that there was a specific difference between obstruction of justice and protesting. When we have people getting in the face of ICE agents, and an ICE agent, I'm going to give you this specific case, where this black ICE agent says, step back, like 5 different times. The guy doesn't step back and he gets tackled. That's what happens. ICE agents don't want you in their faces. If you want to protest, go ahead and do it from 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 feet away. That's protesting. But they don't want to protest. What they want to do is obstruct justice. You guys are not for immigration law. And it's funny. It's like every single time, like the liberals wake up, it's like they check their phones and it's January 6th, 2021. Like, no, we live in 2025. I don't know why you still bring up January 6th. I don't know why you still bring up.
Tell Trump that.
So because you're well, no, tell the rest of the Democratic Party that because you guys bring up January 6th consistently and over and over.
Sorry,
again.
we care about
and
an
again.
attempted
Hold
coup.
on. You're talking about. It's funny how you guys say that you care about due process. Please tell me, why did Obama have a record high 315,000 people that were deported under expedited removal? Right. So tell me that. Why haven't you guys come out?
Expedited removal
and condemned him?
Involves due process. What are you talking about?
Expedited removal. It's in reference to non-judicial removal. So they don't have to go before an immigration judge. They don't have to go before an immigration judge before they are deported, and an NTA is not required. Right, and you guys, a lot of you Democrats are actually very much against expedited removal completely.
No,
but that's
we're against the abuse of expedited removal, where ICE agents are camping out.
You
gotta let me respond. We're against the abuse.
You went on for a bit. Hold on, you went on for a bit there. You went on for a bit. You can't go on forever. Now
I feel like you've talked way more than I have over the past 15 minutes.
There are specific circumstances under expedited removal, Adam. I think we have to go through this with you, okay? So expedited removals typically for people who are arrested near the southern border. But it can also expand on under certain and specific circumstances. You guys continuously want to defend illegal criminals who have illegally entered this country, okay? The majority of people, and hold on, under Trump's administration, have the majority of people that have actually deported in a way, have they self-deported or have been removed? The majority of them have self-deported. How many? Adam, do you remember?
You can just finish your point. I'm
1.6 million people have already self-deported. Cool. And what are they given from the DHS for self-deporting? $1,000, okay? They were given $1,000 self-deport because you are here illegally. It's really easy. It's not complex. It's not hard. And there are people who refuse to self-deport, who are here in this country illegally and pretend to be victims because ICE is enforcing immigration law. I'm sorry, but that's just totally different. And if you're talking about the encouragement, because you talked about the encouragement of political violence, why is it that left-wingers are like 9 times more likely to support the political assassinations of their opponents? Right? Like, why is that the case? If you're talking about the encouragement, how about all of those people who are faculty members or professors at universities and people who worked in certain companies who were let go because they violated their company's code of conduct by celebrating a political assassination? So we all know who celebrates political assassinations the most here, and it's obviously, undeniably, the left.
Okay, I'm going to respond to both of those points you brought up. Let me just write them down. So I'm not against the idea of expedited removal in a vacuum. I'm against the abuse of expedited removal, where people who have passed a credible fear interview, they've been scheduled for an immigration court date, they show up to immigration court following all the rules as they should. They are documented asylum seekers, and ICE is waiting for them at immigration court. They show up, they call the immigration judge and say, hey, we as the DHS are actually just dropping this case now. Now this person's in legal limbo, despite the fact that they followed all the rules, and now we're going to put them in for expedited removal. I'm against the abuse of expedited removal when it's used within the normal confines of people who have been apprehended near the border or have been here for less than 2 years. I have no issue with that. I just want people to follow the law. When you talk about the endorsement of violence, you can talk about all these people, the left, the people on Twitter, I guess. When we're talking about the actual political parties, Democrats versus Republicans, after Charlie Kirk was shot, every single predominant Democrat politician I can think of, Joe Biden, Barack Obama, Kamala Harris, Zoran Mamdani, Cory Booker, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, every single one immediately said this is tragic and we condemn any act
After
of
calling
political
Trump a
violence.
fascist.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump is out here pardoning people who assaulted police officers and were convicted of seditious conspiracy. So we can go back and forth.
After, hold on.
Matt, you have to let me
Those
finish.
people,
dude.
those
We can
those
go
same
back
people
and
called him a
forth.
Just we'll
fascist.
finish both the points and then land the plane at him and then kick it back.
We can go back and forth and like, oh, did you see this one right-wing person said this and this one left-wing person said that? I'm talking about the actual elected officials here, and there is no equivalency between the Democratic Party, which has time and time again condemned all political violence, and the Republican Party, which has time and time again allowed Trump to pardon people who are convicted of political violence.
Allowed? It's called, okay, so it's no one's allowing Trump to do it. You are allowed as a president to pardon people that have committed federal offenses. So I don't know why you're using. I don't know why you're
rhetorically,
misusing terms
not
like,
condemning
hold on.
him.
You're misusing terms like allow. No one's allowing him to do anything. So that's just completely wrong. And again, what you're failing to understand is that those people may have come out and condemned the political assassination of Charlie Kirk, but they were responsible for why it happened in the first place. When you misuse terms like fascist or Nazi or far right and all of these sorts of things to people who are like Charlie Kirk, who were moderate libertarians, who are obviously conservative in the aspect of Christian values and two-parent households and the nuclear family, and you call them fascist, you give a leeway to people like Tyler Robinson, who have a trans partner, who engrave on the bullet casings, "Hey, fascist, catch this." Who's telling people like Tyler Robinson that Charlie Kirk was a fascist? Because I know you don't believe he was a fascist. Well, people like Joe Biden, people like Kamala Harris are endorsing, have said this about Donald Trump, have said this about a lot of.
I don't believe you believe this.
No, I do believe this. Absolutely.
Were you complaining when Donald Trump called his political opponents fascist and scum?
When Kamala Harris called Donald Trump a fascist, right? When she has called people who are obviously not fascist at all fascists, and she has kind of done this whole fear mongering thing, it gives people this sense of fear of, oh, we are under attack. Oh, the right wing is super violent and they're going to overthrow our democracy. And then it gives leeway to people like Tyler Robinson, who are violent radical terrorists.
There are scholars of fascism who would say that Trump represents fascistic ideas.
You guys call ICE the Gestapo, and what happens to ICE? You have a guy who gets on top of a roof who is a radical left person who attempts to shoot at ICE, kills the illegal immigrants that he was trying to save, okay, that you guys so much love more than Americans. And what caused that? What causes someone who's 19, 20, 21?
Is there someone else here who I'm not aware of who loves attacking police? Because it seems like
you guys under BLM in 2020, when you guys did over $2 billion worth of damages in 2020, when you guys burned down an entire city, killed over 30 people,
this is what raises the political temperature when you say you guys are doing something.
Hold on. It's not you guys. I'm talking about the left. It's not a race. I'm talking about the left. You guys are all the same. I don't care if I'm dealing with a radical leftist who is white, black, brown, Indian, whatever. I don't care. You're part of the left and you are evil. Simple. But again, when you guys under BLM did $2 billion worth of damages and looted from small businesses, I mean, talk about the response to Charlie Kirk. Obviously, the right loved Charlie Kirk. When he was politically assassinated, you saw peaceful vigils. You saw memorials for him that were actually vandalized by leftists and radicals. And guess what? Not a single store was looted. Right? Not a single Adidas store, not a single Apple store was looted. There were no billions of dollars worth of damages. No one burned down any city. You guys burned down an entire city over a multiple times convicted felon who was a failed porn star who put a gun up to a pregnant woman's stomach because he couldn't get in a car. You guys burned down an entire city and killed officers and attacked police departments. Please don't talk about who's violence, okay?
I think this is an interesting point. This is an interesting point to go on, fellas, because now we're getting towards the more sort of extreme sides of the aisle here. So, Adam, you were talking before about fascism and how you think Trump represents fascism. Matt, you're talking here about BLM and these sorts of groups that you'd probably consider terrorist organizations. So I think that's a good direction to go.
Yeah, I just want to go off real quick off of what Matt said. I just don't buy that you're so concerned about people raising the temperature with their rhetoric when the guy you support is the one who popularized the chant "lock her up." Who, again, you're
Lock
saying,
her
"Oh,
up.
how dare Kamala Harris call Donald Trump a fascist?" Donald Trump called her a fascist. He called Joe Biden a fascist. He
Wrong.
called them communists. He called them scum. He called everyone who doesn't vote for him the enemy from within. And you are doing the exact same thing when you keep saying you guys support violence. You guys do this. Anytime you paint the left with broad strokes, which I don't really do about the right, I specifically specify ICE agents, DHS, the Trump administration. I have no hate in my heart towards people that voted for Trump. I think in many cases they were actually conned by Trump because he has a way with words. He has a charisma to him, and he took advantage of working class people in this country facing serious issues and lied to them and brainwashed them in some cases. I don't hate these people, whereas Trump does hate his political opponents. He calls them the enemy from within, and he said he wants to use the National Guard and the military against the enemy from within, including Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff and all these different Democrats. And again, you can act like you care about the temperature of political rhetoric. But if that was the case, I'd take you more seriously if you at least also called out Donald Trump for it. So I'm going to sit here, I'm going to condemn, rhetoric that's not accurate, but calling Donald Trump a fascist is not that crazy. I would say right-wing authoritarian when there are scholars of fascism who literally left the country and said what he represents is a right-wing authoritarianism. And we can talk about whether or not Trump represents a right-wing authoritarianism. I don't think you want to have that conversation because it's not a conversation that looks good for you. And again, are you super angry that Trump called Biden and Harris fascist? Are you angry he called them the enemy from within and said we have to use the military against them? Or is it only a problem when Democrats do it?
So let me make this really simple. So one, Trump has not authorized the National Guard to go after any sort of political opponent. Trump has actually authorized National. Hold on, let me finish. Trump has authorized the National Guard specifically to protect ICE agents because guess what? We have people like Brandon Johnson coming out and saying that, yeah, we will not cooperate with ICE. Right? You have people like Zoran Mamdani who screamed at Tom Homan and said, we would not, cooperate with ICE at all. And he was screaming at him saying that he's anti-American, he doesn't like the First Amendment, all because he's enforcing immigration law. By the way, who was Tom Homan appointed by originally? Oh, yeah, Obama, yeah. And who was Tom Homan actually given an award from, by the way? Oh, yeah, Obama. So, yeah, because he does the job good, and Obama knows that. So go ahead and talk to Obama about that specifically. But, again, when it comes to National Guard, yeah, 100,000%. The Insurrection Act of 1807 allows the president to federalize National Guard troops to fight against civil rebellions. When it comes to protecting these National Guard, when they're being deployed to certain cities like Chicago, aren't there to do police's job. They are there to protect ICE agents, okay? Because guess what? In cities like Chicago, which are ran by left-wing lunatics like Brandon Johnson, who only wants to hire people of color to be part of his cabinet, and yeah, go look all this stuff up.
I'm just writing down all your points so I can respond.
Okay, it's fine. What's going to happen is the Trump's administration is going to prefer to send National Guard troops to protect these agents. And no National Guard troops have been used against Nancy Pelosi. It's just more fear-mongering coming from you. And all we have to look at is recency. Again, I brought up the CSIS earlier, Center for Strategic and International Studies, which shows that left-wing terrorist attacks, and they go over a plot and all of this stuff, has been the highest in 2025 in consideration to the right. You guys have more political violence right now than you guys have ever had. That's just plain fact true. We've seen what's going on with Antifa. By the way, it's funny. You guys always talk about how, ICE should cover themselves and wear masks. Why doesn't Antifa, remove the face mask? Oh, they want to protect their identities. I'm curious. Are you for Antifa also, removing their masks? I'm assuming you're not because you're
I'm against all lawless action.
Well, that's not what I asked you.
Can I respond? Because you made 4 or 5 different points there. I don't know why you pivoted from talking about political rhetoric and the reason this happened is because Democrats say all these mean things about Republicans, and then I bring up a very
it's not mean to call someone a fascist. I mean, they're calling him a fascist, right?
It's not nice either. I mean, it's definitely not a positive thing to say about someone. That was kind of the point you were making, is that the reason that all this political violence is happening is because the Democratic Party is using all this rhetoric and raising the temperature and painting all these right wingers as fascists and authoritarians. But you don't hold that same standard for Donald Trump, who, again, you're saying, Trump didn't actually use the National Guard on anyone. Okay, now we're pivoting from rhetoric, which raises the temperature, to action, which is, we can talk about that afterwards, but don't pivot from the actual conversation we were just having, which is that,
the reason that Charlie Kirk was shot,
the reason that Trump was shot is because the left has been calling these people fascist and evil. So of course it's going to happen. Well, Trump has also been calling these people fascist and evil and the enemy from within. Literally today, Donald Trump said, I don't know if you saw the video of all the Democrats saying that if you're in the military, you should refuse illegal orders. Donald Trump just said a few hours ago that the Democrats in that video, Alyssa Slotkin and others, should be killed. They should be hung for saying that? What did they
Yeah,
say that's so egregious
they should go
and so
through
horrible?
they should go through
What
a
is the egregious,
tribunal
horrible thing
and
they
be
said?
convicted of
Matt,
death.
Matt, you gotta let me finish. What is the egregious, horrible thing they said? Oh, if you're in the military, you should refuse illegal orders. If
But they're
Trump
not illegal
had a
orders.
single brain cell, he could say, I'm not giving them illegal orders. Obviously, illegal
Right,
orders
they're
should
not
be
illegal
refused.
orders.
Instead, he says, you should be hanged. So if you want to talk about who is raising the temperature,
Can I
who
respond
is
to that?
putting people's lives at risk, I would say it's the guy who routinely calls the other side scum and the enemy from within, and then pardons people who commit violence in his name.
Right.
And
So let
just
me
by
talk
the way,
about
on the National Guard thing, real quick, judges have blocked every single deployment except the DC one. So, kind of looking out on that one.
Well, I mean, we can talk about that as well, but I mean, there's something core here, right? Specifically when it comes to the deployment of National Guard. But again, I can agree with certain decisions that judges have, and I can disagree with certain other decisions. I mean, there was a time when they authorized them, and when it was revoked, when there was an injunction, and so on. We can have that sort of conversation. But specifically, when you're referencing criminality in these aspects, when you're referencing rhetoric from whichever party, yeah, that is mostly coming from you guys. You guys called Destiny a fascist. I hate Destiny. I think he may be a pedophile, given the circumstances around him messaging minors for sex and all things like that. But again, you guys called that guy a fascist. He's definitely not a fascist. If anything, he's like a radical liberal, I would say, but he's definitely not a fascist. You guys don't use terms correctly, and you fearmonger people, and you call the wrong people Nazis, which gets people killed. And this is exactly what we've seen recently. Where are the Proud Boy members that have been going around to democratic institutions and killing people with rifles and having gear? You don't see this at all. Why don't you see this? Because it's not being something that's very much advocated by the right. And again, when you talk about no Congress member, no member of the House of Representatives has a right to tell people who are service members what they should not and should abide by. That's not under their authority. If you are trying to tell, because that's what they're actually, let me tell you what they're actually saying. What they're actually saying is refuse lawful orders. Yeah, that is dangerous. You should not be telling service members that they should refuse lawful orders, okay? You should not be telling them that. They are not the commander of chief. Who is?
You're literally lying.
Hold on. Who is the commander of chief?
Donald Trump. But you're
there you
literally
go, exactly.
lying.
So why
your
would
tweets
random?
right now.
Why
That's
would
just a
why
lie.
would random? Why would random members of Congress try to tell service members refuse unlawful orders? Now I know
unlawful
I know you guys
orders. Okay,
like
you
to play,
changed it.
I know you guys like
it.
to. No, it's
you
not
realized
that I'm
you were
changing it.
lying.
I'm telling you what they're. Hold on. I wasn't lying. It's not that I'm changing it. I'm telling you what they're actually saying. What they're actually saying
Matt
is refuse
gets to decide
lawful.
what
Hold on.
Matt gets to decide if they
What they're
have
actually,
free speech.
what they are actually saying is refuse lawful orders, not unlawful. The reason why they put unlawful on there is the same reason why Antifa calls itself anti-fascist and then goes on and says, well, if you're anti-me and I'm anti-fascist, you're actually just, against, people who are anti-fascist. It's that same sort of like language terminology game. The truth is they're telling service members to refuse lawful orders when they're not the commander of chief. I'm sorry, but yeah, that may be, death may be warranted for certain behaviors. That's a very bad way to behave and a very unconstitutional right to behave. Now,
it is fascinating to me
Congress
that you
has
care
a right,
more.
Congress has a right to declare war. Hold on. Congress has a right to declare war, but Congress members individually have no right to tell service members what to abide and not abide by. That is completely not, they're not their commanders. They're not a military commander. They're not the commander in chief. They're not Pete Hegseth. They're none of those people. They have no authority. So if you are trying to tell service members individually as a person what they should and shouldn't abide by, I'm sorry, but that may warrant severe legal punishments. Maybe not death like Trump is saying, but severe punishments.
You right, Adam, I reckon, respond to this point, and then I want to get into a little bit of cross-examination after this, because I think that might be the best thing to do moving forward.
Sure. It seems like yet again, Matt, you are just against freedom of speech. Senators making a video saying, hey, we think you guys should not follow unlawful orders. In your mind, unlawful actually means lawful. This is the insane amount of times you have to twist yourself into a pretzel to make excuses for Trump. So Trump saying that these people should be killed, saying that Democrats are the enemy from within, that they're scum, that they're vermin, again, that they are fascists. Also, Trump has used the exact word of fascism as well. That to you is no big deal. But when Democrats make a video just politely saying, hey, we think you guys should refuse unlawful orders. You're like, oh, if you read between the lines, what they're actually saying is you should refuse lawful orders. You can just completely rewrite history if you want. And I'll ask you again, you can't point me to a single elected Democrat who is saying, let's pardon Tyler Robinson. That doesn't exist.
I can point you to a single elected Democrat who is taking text messages from Jeffrey Epstein whilst a hearing is occurring. You can't point to a single
elected Democrat who wants to pardon Tyler Robinson. Meanwhile, the literal president of the United States, not Destiny, not some random guy on Twitter, the literal president of the United States is pardoning people who were convicted of seditious conspiracy and violence against police officers. Right. The reason I keep bringing that up is because you claim to care about these values and principles, but you only use them as a political cudgel against Democrats. And when your own side is guilty of 1,000 times worse, you're weirdly silent about it. And any sort of words you don't like now are illegal. Apparently, these people you think can face legal consequences for saying that the military should refuse unlawful orders. That's illegal to just say those words.
So I try to, you're not really tracking at all, Adam. In this conversation, I mentioned to you the terminology game. I can call myself anti-bad guy. You know the whole anti-bad guy, good guy club or whatever? It's a joke on Antifa, right? If I call myself anti-bad guy, okay, and you're anti-me, are you now anti-bad guys? No, the same way that these leftists who are members of the House or Senate individually who are saying, actually, you should refuse unlawful orders. They don't determine whether or not the orders are lawful or unlawful. That is not under their jurisdiction.
They didn't say they do.
That would be well. So why are they talking? That would be under the jurisdiction of
because Trump has tried
commanders,
to
the lieutenants. Hold
Guard?
on, and judges. I mean, are you not familiar with the three branches of government? You have legislative, judicial, and executive. You don't have the right as a duly elected member of Congress to tell service members what they should and shouldn't abide by. You're not a judge. You're not a military commander. You're not a lieutenant. You don't have any authority over servicemen. I actually believe that's tyranny. That's tyrannical behavior to believe that you, as a member of the House, have the right to tell, service members, actually abide by this and don't abide by that, and just say, well, it's unlawful. And therefore, because you're playing the same game, you're saying that they said unlawful orders. So if I'm saying unlawful orders, I'm against, I'm for service members abiding by lawful orders. Right, so you're really not getting the picture here. Okay,
all right, fellas. I want to.
Can I just ask one super quick question?
You can do it in the cross exam because we're about to get into the cross examination. So you guys are going to have 10 minutes each here. And with the cross examination, it's basically you want to ask pointed questions and you want to be able to get responses. When it's your turn to cross examine, you can cut off at any time and you can move the conversation along at any time. You have the power, and then in the other person's cross examination, they'll have the exact same thing. So Adam, if you want to start off, you can cross examine Matt on his point, and Matt, if he interrupts, you have to cede to him.
Okay, I just want to be super clear, Matt. Is it your contention that the people that made that video saying you should refuse unlawful orders, that the making of that video and posting it is criminal?
Not necessarily. Well, I would believe it's not necessarily criminal. It wouldn't fall under criminal, but it would definitely fall under they have no authority to tell service members what they can and can't do.
I don't think they claimed the authority to give any orders to the armed forces. It's just a
hold on.
Video.
They're claiming they're saying refuse lawful orders, and obviously these service members, any service member, I don't believe the majority of them would ever take any. I think the majority of our military is obviously conservative, but they're saying refuse unlawful orders, right? As if they have the right to tell them what they should and shouldn't refuse. That is not under their jurisdiction.
Matt, do they have the right to express opinions?
They have a right to express opinions, and they can say,
Fantastic.
I disagree with this decision by Pete Hegseth or by any member of the Pentagon or stuff like that. They can say that. But what they can't do is tell service members in this country who, swear allegiance to this country and obviously are under the commander-in-chief, they have no right to tell them what they should and shouldn't do. And
they do.
Refuse unlawful orders. No, they have no right.
They do. It's called the First Amendment.
Hold on. What legal? That's not the First. That's not having a right, right? In reference to telling people what they should and shouldn't do when that's not under their
saying what you think people should do is protected by the First Amendment. They're not invoking any legal authority. They're not trying to give orders to different segments of the military.
It's not a suggestion. It's an informal order.
It's an order?
It's an informal one. It's not one that is legally binding, of course. But if I'm telling you, like, for example, if you tell your son, let's say if you have kids, I mean, I'm 19, you're 23, turning 24, I'm pretty sure neither of us have kids. But if we tell our kids, don't go outside today or something like that, that's not legally binding per se, but that's still an order. The same way that these, Congress members, individual, like, don't, go with this lawful order that I'm calling unlawful, which is not legally binding. It's not legally binding. They have no right to say things like that, right? They have no right to make those sort of propositions.
They
Now,
didn't
can
claim
they
it was legally binding.
They didn't have to claim it was legally binding. There's no
You're just
reason
going to
for why
read
you
into
should-
this.
Then why don't they
come up with what it actually
learn
means.
how
Okay.
to why don't they learn how to articulate themselves in a much more intelligent way? Because you always talk about how people are twisting themselves into pretzels.
Yes.
Why don't they instead just say, I disagree with this military command given by Pete Hegseth or Donald Trump. I don't agree.
Since we're doing cross-examination,
or why don't they just tell Pete Hegseth? Why don't
It
they
is
tell
it
Pete
is
Hegseth?
Adam's cross-exam. So Adam, you get to ask questions here.
Do you hold Trump to any of these same standards you hold Democrats to? God forbid they say the military shouldn't give unlawful orders. Like, no. What you have to say is, in my personal opinion, under the First Amendment, I happen to believe that military
didn't use the
people,
term
if they
shouldn't.
choose to, like, I mean, be consistent with your principles here. If you want to talk about the use of language to incite certain action, again, I know you're like really afraid of talking about January 6th, where you're like, oh, every time a
Well, I'm
liberal
very
opens their phone and checks the date January 6th. No,
It
that's
is.
Trump. Trump's the guy who's like still pardoning these people, who's still complaining and crying about it to this day.
And how
you know
has
what?
that
I
negatively
do
affected
think that
Americans?
actually January 6th was pretty bad, considering that Trump knew he lost the election and then used illegal means to try to change
Should we
the
talk
results
about
of
the
election.
BBC and how the BBC, speaking of inciting violence, obviously this recently came out from the BBC where two officials that were connected to the BBC, I think one director or something, resigned. Now, why did he resign? Well, when Trump gave his speech on January 6th, where he told people to be peaceful, and there was like a 50-minute time differential between when he said to be peaceful and when he said fight like hell, they try to merge it together and act as if it was said simultaneously. And guess what? Two BBC officials had to resign because of that specific action. They resigned because of that action. They literally admitted guilt by resigning after that, right? And Trump is now suing the BBC. So if you want to talk about January 6th, am I someone who's in favor of the actions on January 6th necessarily? Obviously, it was a riot. You can disagree with the pardoning, but this isn't something that's negatively affecting Americans today. People like Zoran Mamdani, who are communist sympathizers, who are jihadist sympathizers, people who have been endorsed by someone who, in 1993 was an unindicted co-conspirator who defended two people who were convicted of terrorism for the 1993 World Trade Center bombings. Those are things more recent. People don't want to continuously talk about January 6th. I'm not even mentioning Joe Biden yet. You notice how I'm not continuously, like, if I want to go on a
you'd
rant
rather
about
mention
Joe Biden,
Obama.
well, right, in terms of favoring me, actually, because what Obama was doing was actually very much sensical when it came to immigration in a lot of ways.
I want to ask
right?
the question again, and I would really love to get an answer here. Do you hold Donald Trump to the same standard that you hold Destiny and people on Twitter and people on BBC? Does Donald Trump get held to that same
No,
standard?
I don't hold Donald Trump to their standard. But again, does Donald Trump have the
Wait, why not?
You guys, well, I hold Donald Trump to a higher standard actually than those people, right?
Doesn't seem like it at all. You hold him to a much lower standard.
Actually, it does. But again, you talk about the freedom of speech. Donald Trump has the freedom of speech as well. The same way that you hold on. The same way that you believe that individuals, member of Congress who have no legally binding, presentation and jurisprudence to tell people what they should and shouldn't do in the military that are service members, is the exact same way that Donald Trump, not even in reference to his presidency, is someone who can do civil litigations and sue people when they try to defame his character and reputation and go through that in civil court, and has the right to say certain things that he wants. Right.
I want to use your favorite line
with it,
against
but
you
he
here.
also has the First Amendment, right?
You had a great line earlier that applies perfectly here. There's a difference between free speech and obstruction. And what Trump did on January 6th was not just free speech. He tried to obstruct an official proceeding, which he was indicted for. He had multiple false, his own team called them. I know MAGA likes to say that they were alternate electors. Trump's own legal team and leaked emails called them fake electors. And again, you can act like January 6th doesn't matter.
We are not in 2021. We're in 2025. Let's help Americans right.
Tell Trump
Let's help Americans
to do it again.
Let's talk about
again.
All right, fellas, we got 3 more minutes on the clock for Adam, your cross-exam. What else would you like to ask?
2021, Matt,
no, it's not that I don't want to talk about it. It's just like we have all of these issues that are hurting the country right now, and you're still crying about January.
Let's talk about right now then.
Next question.
Would you oppose if Trump ends up signing his executive order that he drafted, which instructs the National Guard to go in and seize voting machines so the DNI can analyze the results and tell us the real winner? Would you be in favor of Trump doing that in 2026 and 2028? Yes or no?
I would have to specifically look deeper into that and see.
I can explain in detail. He has
see
an
the
executive
circumstances.
order that's been drafted.
Hold on. I don't need Adam. I don't need you to specifically explain that to me. I think I can look at that myself because I know you like to lie and kind of like misconstrue what things actually are.
You're the only one who's lied.
But we
so
will
far.
worry about we can worry about that in 2026, and we can figure out the legality behind that. There's going to be, judges are going to make decisions in reference to that. Obviously, there's no unilateral power there, but we definitely want to make sure that our elections are fair and actually free. We also want to make sure that hold on. We also want to make sure that if you are someone who wants to go up to the ballot box, you should also be someone who is a U.S. citizen who shows ID, right, Adam?
Sure.
ID mandatory?
Yeah, make it free for
Hold on,
everyone.
Hold on. Is that something popular in your party?
If you provide IDs to everyone, then yes.
No, is it popular in your party?
All right, you'll
depends how
have
you
time
phrase
to
the
cross-examine next.
There you
This is Adam's time to ask questions. You got two more minutes on the clock.
You can
Adam.
ask me that coming forward. I want to ask you again. You're saying, okay, well, the judge will figure it out. I'm just asking you, Mr. Nuclear, okay? If you are looking at this proposed executive order, which has been drafted, I'm just based on your own opinion, would you be in favor, based on how we know Trump responds to election results, which I assume you don't think that he won 2020, maybe you do, would you be in favor of Trump telling Pete Hegseth to federalize the National Guard in, let's say, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania? The National Guard goes into polling places, they seize the voting machines, fly them to DC, and then Tulsi Gabbard tells us, I'm going to analyze these voting machines and tell you guys who the real winners are. Would you be in favor of that?
Again, it would depend on the specific circumstances and the overreach. Obviously, if it's unilateral by Tulsi Gabbard, then that would be an issue. It shouldn't be unilateral. Okay. But obviously, if it's let's say bipartisanly like overseen, then
it's clearly illegal.
Hold on. Then that would be okay, right? So that's specifically my position on that. But again, if we're talking about elections and the voting booth, this is something very important. Do you agree that it should be mandated right now, before anything is made free, like having IDs, to have an ID when you go up there to vote?
I think you should make IDs free and then mandate it. Sure. Yeah,
that's not the no. Should it be mandated right now before it's made free? Who can't afford an ID?
Free and accessible. It's not about affording.
Who can't
people
afford,
are working paycheck to paycheck, 40-hour weeks. Taking the time to go to the DMV and wait in line is like easier said than done. Again, I have no issue with requiring voter ID.
Hold on. How old are these people voting?
Hold
on. Let's get into this a little bit. How old are these people voting?
I mean, anything over 18.
Who can't go to the DMV and wait in line to get an ID? How old are they?
Wait, are you against just giving them a free ID?
Hold on. Can you answer my question? How old are they?
It's Adam's question time still for one more minute. So
hold on. Shouldn't they? I'm sorry, but wouldn't the DMV?
Matt, do you support or oppose everyone?
No. Adam gets to ask the questions. Go for it, Adam.
Matt, do you support or oppose everyone getting a free ID so they can vote? Easily accessible. They ship it to you. You can do it online.
No, I'm not necessarily in favor of that. I mean, it would decrease city funding. It would decrease city funding, obviously, because the DMV is something that's local. Well, I mean, things add up, so that's also a thing. And I believe every American can afford it. I'm sorry, but I believe every American can afford an ID. Like, I still want to ask. I know it's still like your time to cross.
You can ask this in like a minute when you're.
We got 60 more seconds. Adam, if you got one last question, then we're going to move on, and then it's going to be Matt's turn to ask questions.
I'm just going to ask you. I mean, I haven't gotten a single answer to a single question I've asked you for this
entire
cross-examination period. But I'm going to ask you again, what is the issue with just making IDs easily accessible to people?
It's not about making the IDs easily accessible. I don't think that IDs are going to become overwhelmingly easily accessible because, again, you're talking about people that are going to wait, have to go to the DMV and wait at the DMV. They're still going to have to wait if the IDs are made free. Actually, wouldn't it make the lines even longer? Because your excuse was if the reason why certain adults can't go to the DMV is because the lines are packed and they have work. Well, the lines are going to be even more packed if it's made free.
Not if you ship it to people.
Because it's free now. Well, I mean,
just mail it to people.
Well, do that in your democratic states then.
Sure. Do you oppose that?
The DMV is a local. Well, the DMV is not a federal thing, so it wouldn't be.
Okay.
So it would all be about states. It'd all be in reference to states. So
you care about state and federal differences in election law, but yet you're not.
Don't pivot, because you're not understanding the difference between a local government, city government, and federal government. You're not noticing the difference here, right? So again, is the DMV something that's locally done? Of course. So if your democratic states want this to happen, then do that.
I just asked if you support it or oppose it.
I don't mind. I personally oppose it. I personally oppose making all of the IDs free, and I don't think it'll fix your issue of people not being able to get IDs because your excuse
what about shipping
earlier,
them to them?
Hold on. Your excuse earlier for why people can't get IDs is because the lines would be too long. But your issue is that the lines would be even longer if the IDs become free.
There's no line outside my mailbox. I don't know what the issue would be with
So now
shipping
you're
IDs
changing
to
it to your
people.
mailbox. How long would it take?
I've been saying that for like
how
the
long
past
would it,
few
it
minutes.
wouldn't it hold on.
All right, now
wouldn't it
let's transition.
be-
So
it would
Matt,
be-
now it's your turn to ask
Sure.
questions. You have interrupting rights, and you can ask the questions, and then Adam's got to answer them for the next 2 minutes.
I'm sorry, but wouldn't it take you? I think it would be easier for me to go to my local DMV and get an ID. Let's say it takes me 2 hours or something, than
Sure.
to have to wait like 3 to 5 business days until it reaches my mailbox. What? Is that not
Sure,
true?
you can choose if you want to go to the DMV or if you want to get it mailed to you. I just want to make it more
No,
accessible and more easy
I
to
think
get.
any functioning adult in modern society should just be able to go to their local DMV, wait a few hours, get an ID, and need that ID to vote. You agree?
Sure, and they can also get it mailed to them if they want. I think that's totally fine. I don't know what the issue there
I'm pretty
is.
sure some. I mean, it's all down to the state level. So I'm pretty sure some of them can get it mailed, and some of them maybe can't get it mailed. I think it depends on how the state
And that's a
would
good thing.
operate it. It's something that doesn't mind, but doesn't fix the issue. The problem is getting an ID is overwhelmingly accessible. So, given that fact, are you now proposing that people be mandated to have an ID when it comes to going?
I've
to the
never
voting
been
booth?
against voter ID. I don't know where you're getting that idea from.
Right, but your party is the overwhelming majority of your party tries to undermine.
If you look at polling on this, it's
the overwhelming majority of your party, specifically when it comes to like AOC, undermines the importance of ID and says things like they disproportionately affect minority groups, almost calling minority groups dumb, by the way, saying that you're not even intelligent, you're not intelligent enough to find out where your local DMV is and go get an ID. I find that pretty disturbing. In a way, it's another way, but let me get to the other things. So I really want to question you on Zoran Mamdani. Do you think it's of good moral character to take picture with someone who is an unindicted co-conspirator for the 1993 World Trade Center bombings? And although he was unindicted, Imam Mohaj openly stood as a character witness for the defense for someone who was the mastermind of the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. So he stood witness to someone for the defense side, and he also was a defense witness for someone else who was.
Were those people
of terrorism.
convicted that he was a witness for?
Both of them were convicted. The mastermind also. Do you think Zoran Mamdani taking a picture with this individual specifically, and then going out later and still standing on those actions is a morally reprehensible thing?
I think it's not great. I don't think it's a big deal though.
You don't think
I
it's
wouldn't
a big,
take that
you don't think it's a big deal to
take a picture with someone?
take a picture and do an interview and all this stuff with Imam Wahaj, who was a 1993 World Trade Center bombing co-conspirator who served as a defense witness for the mastermind. You don't think that's morally reprehensible?
To take a picture with that person? I don't think it's more. I think it's probably
and
not
to be
smart.
giggly with them and to support them and to be endorsed by them. After knowing those specific circumstances, that's not morally reprehensible?
It's probably not great to be giggly with someone who's an unindicted, would you say, co-conspirator in the World Trade Center bombing? I just don't think it's a big deal when we're evaluating Zoran Mamdani overall.
He stood as a character witness for the defense.
I understood that when you
and
said
the
it
guy and the guy that he stood as a defense witness to was literally convicted as the mastermind behind 1993 World Trade Center bombing.
And that's bad.
That's morally reprehensible, and Zoran Mamdani shouldn't have taken a picture with him.
Morally reprehensible
and then later justify that picture, correct?
Morally reprehensible is not the word I would use. It's very extreme language for that.
It's extreme to do a 1993 to do a bombing of the World Trade Centers and to stand as a character witness for the defense.
Mamdani didn't do any bombings.
Mamdani didn't, but he supported and endorsed someone who did.
Endorsed him for what?
Right. Imam Wahaj endorsed Zoran Mamdani, but obviously he was very supportive of Imam Wahaj.
Yeah, I think taking that picture probably wasn't a good idea if this is someone who's been linked to terrorism before.
After Zoran was asked about it, he still defended Imam Wahaj, even after knowing the circumstances. Well, he said that he was unindicted and he doesn't really mind the fact that he stood as a character witness to those who were literally convicted of terrorism.
Nothing illegal there, right?
It's not illegal, but is it morally okay?
It's probably not great, no. But
it's not great at all, right? How about failing? Hold on.
If
I tell you that Hamas should disarm, would you agree with that?
Sure.
Okay, great. Do you think if you want to serve as the mayor of New York City and Zoran Mamdani fails to call for the disarmament of designated terrorist organizations, that speaks bad of his character?
Say it again.
If Zoran Mamdani refuses to call for the disarmament of designated terrorist organizations, is that good or bad?
I mean, he doesn't have any influence on foreign policy, so I don't really care.
It's not about It's not about just influence over foreign policy. It's about character in a way. And by
It's
the
just
way,
not significant to me in my evaluation of him as a mayoral candidate.
because you're talking about character, don't you guys always talk about how Trump, said certain things in the past and he was racist and all these things? Why are those things brought up? Because you guys take the importance of character, not just policy prescription. So is it bad for someone's character when they fail to condemn a designated terrorist organization, which is only second in terms of terrorist attack significance to 9/11? Is that a bad thing?
I think refusing to condemn terrorism the way that Trump has also done before is a bad thing. Yes.
Okay, there you go. See, I had put Trump in there because you
Yep.
always have to run away to the scapegoat
Yep.
him. But okay,
Should I have
those
done
are
Obama
two things.
instead?
Those are two things. Hold on. Those are two things that Zoran Mondani has done. One of them is really morally reprehensible, and the other one is just straight up like a pretty like silly thing. But I'm not surprised because he's very much endorsed jihad. Is it also morally reprehensible to lie about having an aunt who, after 9/11, couldn't go on the subway train with the hijab because people would be in fear of her, when one, it wasn't his aunt, because his aunt actually didn't live in New York and his aunt doesn't wear a hijab? And is it also pretty inappropriate to lie like that on 9/11, where over
In South
2,000
Asian culture, you call people aunt even if they're like cousins of your parents. That's
yeah,
like
but he was
very
proven.
normal.
Yeah, but he changed his wording after. At first, it was his aunt, and then he says, "Well, it's the cousin of my dad." Right?
We would call that an aunt
He
in
could
Desi
have said, well, hold on. He could have actually said the truth, right? And by
That
the
is the
way,
truth.
that other person you're talking about hasn't been proven to actually live in New York at all either, nor wears a hijab.
Okay.
So he's
I
also a
call
liar.
cousins of my
he's
parents
also a
aunt and
liar.
uncle. Like that's just how it is.
Yeah, but it's not about that. It's about the circumstance. The circumstance is that apparently she was afraid to go on the subway train because she couldn't wear her hijab, and neither two of those women ever wore a hijab. So it's just a blatant lie. And is that very inappropriate when Americans jump to their death? Over 2,900 were killed, and that's what you do. You lie about a story and misrepresent things. It just speaks about your bad character. Again, this guy wants to run New York City. He's in New York City, specifically where 9/11's most horrific attack happened, apart from like the Pentagon, and he's lying about his aunt and the circumstances around it, instead of like bringing actual victims' families and talking about the horrific results of Islamic terrorism, right? Like, and let's go about policy, because his character is reprehensible. And by the way, let me ask you a question. This is really important. Do you think Zoran Mamdani sees himself as an American?
Yeah.
So who do you think knows more about Zoran Mamdani? Him or his mother? You or his mother?
Probably his mother.
So Zoran Mamdani's mother in an interview.
I know the
said
clip.
that, yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
into it. Zoran Mamdani's mom
It's
in an
just
interview.
not that
hold
deep,
on.
but okay.
Zoran Mamdani's, you know it, Adam. You know it. Zoran Mamdani's mother in an interview said that Zoran doesn't see himself as an American. He sees himself as a Ugandan and Indian. Now, I think, yeah, you can do Pikachu face all the time. That's what I do to all of your allegations, right? But I think that when you want to run the largest city in the country, you should see yourself as an American. And I think that's also another core problem with Zoran Mamdani.
I think if you asked him that, he'd say, "I see myself as an American."
Oh yeah, he changed. Yeah, but I think his mother knows more about him.
Yeah, there's probably
apart-
context surrounding
and I
that,
don't
like
and I
culturally
don't
speaking,
take-
linguistically speaking. He probably feels connected to those cultures because he grew up there. That's fine.
Yeah, but he's very disconnected from this country. He's also lied continuously about multiple different things. He said that he wants to decriminalize prostitution now, but earlier he said he'd want to do it. He's
called
openly
changing
lied
your
about
mind?
changing your mind or lying.
Well, Mamdani has seriously moderated compared to like 5 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So what about the fact that he also said that he doesn't want to work with Trump's administration? He wants to
Hold up,
Trump-proof
can
the
you guys
city.
hear the barking
And
in
also
the
tomorrow,
background or
hold
no?
on. He said that he wants to Trump-proof the city, and he wants to stop, city mayoral connection between New York and the federal government. Although now he's meeting with Trump tomorrow, so he's really
Exciting.
flip-flopping, and he's actually hurting a lot of you guys in many ways. What about his attack on businesses, proposing $30 minimum wage by 2030, which is awful, okay? And also proposing government-owned grocery stores.
Yeah, I don't like either of those policies, but he can't get them done, so I don't really care.
So are you going to just make the argument that if someone proposes horrible policy, if they can't get them done, that doesn't speak to anything?
It speaks to me disagreeing with their policy, but it doesn't really pose much of a threat if those policies aren't going to get implemented.
So you're talking about the effect of the policy, not even just the proposed action itself.
When we're talking about, again, the prompt, like the threat
Right.
this represents to the country, I think words don't represent a real threat. I know you're super against free speech.
So it's
it
not
seems like,
words, but I mean, policy prescriptions are a real thing, and it's not
Sure.
likely that he'll get these things done.
I can support
But there's
someone and
also-
disagree with them on a
but
couple things.
there's also a possibility that he gets some of these things done, and this is popular amongst the Democratic electorate, is it not? These
Government-run
policies,
grocery stores. I don't know. Raising minimum wage. Yeah.
raising minimum wage
Last
and
minute.
government-owned grocery
Last
stores
minute
is
here,
something
Matt.
that's very it's last minute. It's something that's very popular amongst the Democratic electorate, right?
Mhm.
Not to mention his horrible policies on building homes. You mentioned building homes. You know he can't build homes and also have rent freezes and rent stabilization that
he can.
disincentivizes new units building.
No,
What's
a
the
very,
incentive?
very small proportion of new housing starts are rent stabilized. Most rent stabilized units were built decades ago. They're not really building
But it
any new ones. This wouldn't
disincentivizes
affect
new
the
units being built.
no, because
It's
non-rent
economically been proven.
stabilized units are not subject to the Rent Guidelines Board. So that
Yeah,
wouldn't
but
even affect
you're
them.
less. Yeah, but he assigns all 9 members of the rent guideline boards, and what
Yeah.
ends up happening, and this has been shown in multiple different cities, is that when rent freeze or rent stabilization is proposed,
Mhm.
new units being built is discouraged in general. You can say it may not apply to them eventually, or I mean immediately,
At all.
but it may apply. No, but it may apply eventually to those units. It may apply to those units eventually, and that discourages new building. Another
It
thing when it
doesn't.
comes to communism, let me finish this point. I don't know how there's like 30 seconds left. He's also proposed that when landlords who own certain buildings refuse to renovate or fix the property or repair damages, he'll first go in there, repair. The city will repair all of the damages and send the landlords to build. The issue when you
Mhm.
rent freeze is that you're not freezing the cost of plumbers, of engineers, of the renovation, or any of these things, which is why those landlords don't want to renovate in the first place. It's not like they're doing it for no reason. And he said if they don't agree to pay for the forced repairment of those property,
How dare they?
the city will take over the entire building, which is seizing the means of production, which is a core tenet of communism, by the way. And it's
Like
funny
when
because
Trump nationalized
you're
Intel.
indirectly agreeing that like all of his policies are like basically bad.
No,
You're
most
not
of his
even
policies
you're not even defending
fantastic.
you're not really
Reforming
defending any
zoning,
policy.
reforming permitting, increasing tax revenue. These are all amazing policies. And again, you're acting like
Hold
he's going
on,
to
they're
destroy
amazing now.
housing
You just
supply.
said he couldn't go.
His proposals for zoning
Hold on.
reform would
I
increase
can
housing
interrupt. I can
supply.
interrupt during my. The thing is,
Last
you're
point.
saying
Last
you're
point.
saying they're amazing. You're saying they're amazing. Yet you're also saying I don't really care because he can't get them done. So which one is it?
The ones he can get done are good ones, right? The things like government-run
can't
grocery
increase
stores,
tax
and
revenue.
30 is probably too high for the minimum wage.
He can't increase tax. He can't increase tax revenue.
All right, guys. I think this is a good time to go on to the closing statements. You guys only have 2 minutes, give or take, each to give your closing statements. If you go over 30 seconds or whatever, it doesn't really matter. And then, guys, we're going to get into some super chats as well. So whatever you guys have said, any questions that you've got for the debaters today, you can get into some super chats with them. So, Matt, you've got 2 minutes on the clock. Closing statement.
I mean, I'd rather him go first.
No, he opened it up.
Okay.
So,
okay,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, my closing statement generally when it comes to all of this is that it's been proven in reference to recency in 2025 that left-wingers commit the most amount of political violence. We've seen all the attacks on ICE, people getting on top of roofs, sniping at ICE agents. You saw Charlie Kirk get sniped. You're seeing all of the 1,000% increase in violence against ICE. You're seeing people want ICE to, demask and show their faces so people can figure out their names and kill them in their homes and kill their family members and attack them. You are seeing the rise of radicalism within the Democratic Party with people like Omar Fateh, AOC, Rashida Tlaib, and Zoran Mamdani proposing socialist policies which are awful and which have left to the starvation of millions of people across multiple different countries. You're seeing the new wave of socialism amongst the youth, which I think is only bad for the country and how we progress forward in a general sense. He hasn't really been able to substantiate how the right wing is more violent. I mean, I showed him the data that obviously it's like more left wingers are violent now than ever. I've obviously showed him the data when it comes to like Democrats being 9 times more likely to celebrate political violence. They can mention January 6th, which is basically a riot at the Capitol if they want to, but $2 billion worth of damages under BLM, which BLM has always been a Marxist-Leninist movement, which they looted from stores, did all that violence. When you saw Charlie Kirk get assassinated, peaceful vigils, all of those things were peaceful. I don't think that we actually didn't get to speak about like Epstein and the Democratic conspiracy with Epstein and all of that. So that's very unfortunate because you have people like Stacey Plaskett who are getting messages from Jeffrey Epstein on how to interrogate Trump's lawyers and stuff. And you also have Hakeem Jeffries supposedly like wanting to meet up with Epstein for a dinner 4 years after he was convicted of soliciting a minor for prostitution and taking campaign money from both. We didn't get to talk about all of those different things, unfortunately. But I think generally, the Bubba thing is really silly. Like, come on, it's not even like. But I think generally, when it comes to all of these sorts of different things, he's just been proven to be wrong on every aspect. If you're, sitting member of the House of Representatives, you don't have the unilateral right or any sort of like legal precedent to tell service members what they should not or should, oblige with or agree with. That's just silly. He kept continuously mentioning January 6th as if that means anything. When we talked about deportations and ICE, over 1.6 million people self-deported.
That's 2 minutes.
They're given $1,000 to self-deport. Over 400,000 have been deported through removals. Again, common sense policy. Yeah.
Adam?
Sure. So, as I've been saying throughout this entire debate, I oppose any form of radicalism that breaks the law or puts people's lives in danger. I believe in things like rule of law and constitutional rights, which over the course of this conversation, it seems like Matt plays very fast and loose with whether he actually supports things like the First Amendment or due process or protecting law enforcement from threats from political radicals, for example. We can look at statistics, and the same CSIS study that said this was the first year where left-wing violence overtook right-wing violence
Recency.
also said that 30 years before then, it was the other
30
way
years
around.
before.
And the big difference
Closing
between
statements, no
how both
interruptions.
parties engage with political violence is that the Democratic Party, at every single turn, all the elected officials, all the people that are actually in power, unequivocally condemn it, whereas the Republican Party, especially under the leadership of Trump, they endorse political violence. They call for the death and imprisonment of their opponents. Again, Trump said today that these people should be hung. He said prior that Gavin Newsom should be in jail, that J.B. Pritzker should be in jail. Again, he has given a green light to people that want to engage in this sort of illegal political violence by pardoning them and even for unrelated charges later on continuing to pardon them, which sends a message: if you commit political violence for me, I got you, I'll take care of you, I'll pardon you. Also, the double standards that were on display throughout this entire conversation, the fact that we are holding Destiny and random people on Twitter and just you guys or the left, whatever this amorphous group is that he keeps referencing, to a higher standard than the president of the United States is ridiculous to me. And then I think what we've actually seen on display here over the course of this conversation is what I know that people like to talk about, TDS. I think Matt here might have Trump devotion syndrome.
Okay, well, thank you very much, guys. Let's get into a few super chats, see what the audience has been saying. Let's get this started. We can definitely get the goal tonight, says Aaron. Optimistic. Miss D says, smash that 50 super goal and 250 likes membership giveaway. Malcolm says, must set a good example for the pause, like the stream. Thank you guys for that. Aaron says, it isn't just about policy, about if policy can be implemented. People voting for bad policy shows where the people stand, and that in and of itself can set precedent.
Right.
The Cut for 5 says, Adam, you're getting nuked. Are you okay with this eminent domain on landlords in NY for not fixing something while the mayor puts rents on freeze?
Yeah, so again, I want to clarify, when we're talking about a rent freeze, we're not talking about people not paying rent anymore. We're talking about a freeze in the increase in rent, which has been done before. There's precedent for that. When it comes to eminent domain, I mean, this is a last resort when you have like neglectful landlords. I'm personally going to come down, maybe this is controversial, against neglectful landlords. I think if you have apartments that you're renting out to people, you should probably do your best to keep them in good condition. And that if you are violating city codes or safety rules, then there is a role for city government to step in there.
Can I respond to that real quick? It's really important. So this all comes about incentive structure. Obviously, if you're a landlord, you want to upkeep your property because then you're more likely to have people to come in, obviously, right? The reason why landlords are not upkeeping certain properties because they can't afford to. In certain units in New York, it costs like $100,000 for like renovations. They can't recoup the cost. And you can actually hear what these landlords are saying. They're saying, I cannot recoup the cost. It's better to keep it vacant because I will be under rent freeze or rent stabilization. There are certain buildings where some units are under rent freeze, some aren't, and some are in threat of being under rent freeze. So it makes these landlords skeptical. They can't recoup the costs, and this is why they do this. Actually, what's funny is if you're talking about the upkeeping of certain buildings, 68% of rent-stabilized homes in New York have like maintenance issues. Okay, the reason why that is the case, or rent frozen, the reason why that is the case is because I have no incentive to repair the damages if I'm not profiting, if I'm already at a loss. All of this is horrible for the housing market, okay? These landlords aren't trying to like intentionally have vacancies or intentionally like keep like these units in really bad condition. Why? Because that's not like in terms of market like intelligent. You want to keep your unit like presentable to someone who may be a future tenant. The reason why they can't do that is because of horrible leftist policy like rent freeze or rent stabilization.
Just real quick, I'm not losing any sleep over landlords making less profit. I mean, it's actually necessary for landlords and homeowners to make less profit if you want to address the housing crisis, because if you expand supply, housing will necessarily be worth less and people will make less money. I think that's a good thing.
No, but that's not the point. It's not about, obviously you want to increase supply. Increasing supply means incentivizing new units being built, not
with zoning reform, like Mamdani has proposed.
By having deregulation is good. We want
And Mamdani supports that deregulation.
hold on. We want deregulation, but the issue with Mamdani is that he has a bunch of contradictory policy. He talks about deregulation, and he also talks about rent freeze and rent stabilization. That's horrible. He talks about, for example, making things easier for businesses. That's fine. If you want to deregulate a lot of things and make it so businesses don't have to go through a bunch of like complicated tax codes to go into business, I agree with that. But then also don't propose a $30 minimum wage and government-owned grocery stores right next to them when they have a 1% to 2% profit margin in which you can literally kill their business and have them lay off workers or increase prices when you're trying to deal with like affordability. So I agree with certain aspects of Mamdani's policies. The issue is a lot of them, the issue, a lot of them are contradictory and communistic.
All right, next one. We've got Beef Sleazy sent 20 and said, here's some change for your medical bills from our fight, Little Snake. That won't be necessary, Beef Sleazy, because I beat you up, so no problem. The Cut says for 5, Adam, do you want to open the borders, and why can't you accept there will be some flaws since this is a multi-million people issue?
I don't want open borders. I want strong border security, and I also want a humane system to address people who are seeking asylum. If they have invalid asylum claims, I think sure, deport them. If they come in here to commit a crime, if they refuse to present themselves to law enforcement, I think deport them. If someone has been following the asylum process here, or they have withholding of removal or convention against torture, all these different legal statuses that apply to undocumented people, I think that's fine. I want people to be treated humanely, and I want law and order in this country. I think it should also probably be easier to come in here legally, which would reduce the demand for illegal crossings.
Beef Sleazy says, Adam, if ICE agents wear proper gear, identify they are ICE agents with badge numbers, would you still want to see their faces? If yes, why are you?
Yeah, I don't think that seeing the faces of ICE agents has much to do with sexual orientation. That's a strange implication. Check this person's hard drive, but yeah.
All right, Anthony, shots fired at Beef Sleazy there. Anthony AJC says, here to show support, hit the like, fellas. Let's get this goal finished off for our Lord. I don't think we'll get the goal today, guys, but you've done crazy things in the past. Mallow Matt says, expecting Democrats to use careful wording when Trump is our president is crazy work. Have you seen any of his tweets? Bro says whatever he wants. I think that one is for you, Matt.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think I did pretty magnificent. I mean, Adam Khan has been making like continuous videos about me ever since I annihilated him on Jubilee. You know, he's been kind of, a little, jealous of my performance over him there. And it seems that he wanted to call me out for another debate. And listen, I respect him. We have good conversations. We have good debates. I think he kind of like deeply hates me, but it's all good.
I just think you're a bad faith actor, but that's a different conversation.
Okay, he thinks I'm a bad faith actor.
Would you guys, if we could line up a boxing match, would that be a possibility?
Oh, that would be. Oh my, I would.
Let's
love it.
run it. That'd be so fun.
Adam. Oh my goodness.
Adam, you've been training, haven't you? You've been doing a bit of boxing. Yeah. Okay.
Adam, what's your height, by the way? You're like pretty short, aren't you?
5'11" and a half, almost 6, but low under 6.
Okay, let's set it up. Me versus Adam Khan.
That'd be so
a boxing match. Let's go.
All right, I'll see what I can do, boys. Just Gerald says for 10, I dare the Democrats to show Republicans are worse or more dangerous without mentioning Jan 6. I'm so sick of hearing it. But it's their only example. It's all they have. It's so lame. New example for you, Adam.
This is like me saying, I dare Republicans to show that Democrats are worse or more dangerous without mentioning Charlie Kirk or BLM or Antifa or whatever. I mean, I'm going to bring up an attempted coup on the government. And then, again, Trump has made this relevant in 2025 as well by pardoning these people. So he can't let it go.
Funny how he mentions January 6th when and then when it comes to the left, there's like multiple different acts of violence that are worth billions of dollars that have looted and taken from small businesses. Don't forget the rooftop Koreans, guys. Okay, the rooftop Koreans had to get on top of rooftops and shoot at leftists who were trying to like loot their small businesses because Rodney King died. Okay, like why is that the case with the left? Why is it when something happens in terms of someone gets arrested, something happens that you don't like or whatever, you start a riot and you loot from small businesses? Aren't you guys for small businesses? Don't you want to increase the minimum wage, which is actually anti-small business? But
Yep. And I would stand with what Joe Biden said during the 2020 presidential debate, where he said anyone engaging in illegal acts of violence should face criminal prosecution. I would love if Trump and MAGA Republicans could take that same stance publicly. It'd be great.
Yeah, but I mean, Harris disagrees with that because Harris actually endorsed the organization that was actually bailing out these people. So yeah, during 2020 BLM. So that's something also.
Not true.
10 gifted Rattlesnake TV memberships from TD. Thank you very much, TD. I appreciate that. Oh, no, it's Aaron for 5. Says, Adam, can you provide a single example of political violence outside J6, especially any in the scope of BLM riots, billions worth of damage?
There have been death threats against multiple Democratic politicians.
Oh,
Paul
death
Pelosi's head was bludgeoned in with a hammer. Trump made jokes about it. There's been follow-ups of people, and this isn't technically January 6 people that were convicted that were later pardoned. This year have went on to threaten FBI agents and threaten law enforcement, saying, "Oh, you prosecuted me, you investigated me, I'm coming for you." So there's that as well. And then there's also the whole host of I wouldn't blame Republicans for this necessarily, but like white nationalist violence that has taken place over the last few years.
That's interesting because, I mean, that doesn't really make much sense. What you gave there mostly was just threat this, threat that, threat this, and then Nancy Pelosi, the whole Nancy Pelosi situation where, yeah, I mean, he was
Josh
Nancy
Shapiro's
Pelosi's
house was burned down.
yeah, but that wasn't done by a conservative. There's no evidence that the person that actually burned down his house was conservative at all. You guys kind of assume that, but that's also something.
Baxter Boy sent 5. I've got a quick question for you guys. Now, when you go on these Jubilee shows and everything, and you're in LA together, and you guys are all young people, and you're probably going and partying and stuff. You guys like knockabout, and do you like date the same girls, the right and the left Republicans and Democrats on the Jubilee?
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
Is there like little love triangles and everything going on?
You'd have
Like,
to ask the LA people because we're both flying out there, so I don't think we're in tune.
Yeah,
with
we're not from
the
LA.
political
Yeah.
scene there. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know how these things work. Like,
I mean,
with
the guy that
all your
'cause it was-
discords and shit.
during the 2v2 roundtable series, the guy that was on my side was obviously George. Me and him went out to eat and stuff, and we kind of enjoyed LA a little bit after. I mean, before I flew out and stuff, but no, not really with the leftists. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. I just was wondering. Erin says, what about Mamdani's quote that it doesn't matter what can be implemented, it matters that it gets funded? Pretty sus.
Yeah, I think that actually shows that Mamdani, I mean, for all the talk of Mamdani being this crazy, radical, dogmatic person, he said time and time again that if I try something and it doesn't work, I'll try something else. If we're unable to raise corporate taxes or income taxes, we'll try to secure different streams of revenue. I think that actually shows a flexibility, which is admirable in a public servant. And when it comes to like, it matters that it gets funded. I mean, Mamdani's obviously, like any politician, not going to be able to implement every single thing he wants. He's going to have to prioritize and do the wheeling and dealing of politics, building coalitions, dealing with Albany, dealing with Hochul. And my assumption is, and my hope is that he's going to pursue the policies that are easiest for him to pursue, which I think are some of his best policies.
Well, there's actually an issue with that as well. I mean, he's proposing policies that have already historically been proven to be false, even here in America. Like, we don't have to go to Venezuela, Soviet Union, North Korea, or China to figure out that government-owned grocery stores don't work. We can go to Kansas City. I mean, you already agree with me on this because I'm pretty sure you're econ major. You know how this sort of stuff works as well. But Kansas City, spent $17 million in city funds for government-owned grocery stores. It's fine to say that, like, oh, we'll be flexible. If it doesn't work, we'll close down the government-owned grocery stores in every borough. But these policies have already been tried, and we already know they'll fail. So, like, there's no purpose of even like going with them or running on them again. But when you're dealing with a unsophisticated Democratic electorate and young people, and the fact that the majority of people who voted for Zoran Mamdani were either born outside of the country or born outside of New York. He was not very popular amongst native-born New Yorkers for an actual reason, because they actually know how these policies and stuff actually function.
Mallow Matt for 5 says, corporations and billionaires don't even need to defend themselves. They taught working class Republicans to run their defense instead. Good lapdogs. What would you say about that, Matt?
Yeah, we're not good lapdogs for promoting free market capitalism and what has built this country and made it so wealthy and so prosperous and so great. If you want to live in the Scandinavian nations, go ahead and let's increase, taxes on middle class people by 30 to 35%, which is a regressive tax, a VAT tax. Do we want to do that? If so, run on that, okay? But it's not a shilling for corporations. I mean, in Denmark, I'm pretty sure their minimum wage is $0, and they're very much pro corporations. I don't mind corporations. I want pro-business policies which incentivize people to be hired, not lay off workers, and to have more benefits for their employees, right? The majority of people that are employed in this country are, or what's called not employed, but are insured in this country, are insured through employer insurance. I want people to hold jobs. When Democrats promote policies like raising the minimum wage, which loses thousands of jobs in California and stuff, those are anti-business policy. When you increase the corporate tax rate to a crazy amount, people will leave to different states, because here in the country we have states' rights. Certain states don't have state taxes at all, right? Certain states do, certain states don't. And we're seeing people leaving California, New York, all of these cities that have more socialist-like policies, and they're going towards Texas and Florida, in Tennessee. Why? Because it's free market enterprise. New York's share of millionaires has actually decreased in terms of the entire country. So we're promoting free business policies that are good for workers, good for wages, good for employment.
All those Scandinavian countries actually rank higher than the United States on the Economic Freedom Index. So it turns out you can have a single-payer healthcare system, you can have strong unions, strong environmental protections, and still have a robust marketplace.
Oh, sorry. Crusader here says, no question, just want to support Jake the Rattlesnake, but not too shabby for these youngins. 07 to you to Crusader, and yeah, some.
By the way, Adam, I actually like the fact that you said that, because a lot of people claim that those countries are very are socialist nations, and you saying that they, because you're familiar with the Gini coefficient, correct? Right, exactly. I'm pretty sure they're. I don't know if they're ranked higher, because the U.S. is like number 5 in terms of Gini coefficient. If no one knows what the Gini coefficient is, it essentially measures wealth distribution. We also have the highest disposable income, just so everyone knows, in the world also. But yeah, countries in Scandinavia are not very much socialist at all.
Social democracies.
So you can say social democracies because they have like a stronger welfare state and stuff like that, but they also are not very pro-middle class, because they have like a taxes on middle class which have increased like 30-35% higher than what we currently have. And
they don't actually complain about that there, though, because they get like amazing public services from the government, and they have very strong unions as well, which actually compensates for not having a minimum wage, which is what I support. I mean, we
also have unions, so that's that.
Yeah, but union participation rate has fallen off a cliff, which has coincided with falling wages as well.
Unions can also cause a lot of issues. So
Blaine P says for 30 for putting up with the tards in the chat tonight. Thank you, Blaine. I needed that. Chris says, thanks everyone. I enjoyed the debate. Thank you very much, Chris. Much appreciated. Double the rent on single mothers, says Argus. Not sure about that.
There's a vote. I didn't even see there was a vote. 90 people voted, and 76% of people said I won. Look at that.
Congrats.
Ah.
This is why I chose a right-wing platform for us to debate on. I thought you'd be less hesitant to do the debate then. I'm glad you're happy.
It's not less hesitant, dude. We can go on a left-wing, one after.
Sure.
There's no right and left in the boxing ring, boys. No right and left in the boxing ring.
Oh, true. Listen, Adam,
I mean, just rights and
if you
left.
get in the
Blue and
boxing
red,
ring,
baby.
though, I may hurt you, if we ever get in the boxing ring, though.
I'm shaking. I'm so scared.
How tall are you, Matt?
I'm 6'1".
Okay, so
can
you
we
guys
be
are
honest though?
height.
Like the Antifa, I know you're not Antifa, Adam, obviously, but like the left wingers are not very masculine at all. I mean, can we be honest with ourselves? They're not very masculine, not very strong.
Neither are like a lot of right wingers. I mean,
no, we actually are.
Mr. Piggy is president right now, who I don't think is like the shining beacon of masculinity.
Mr. Piggy, come on, man. The majority of UFC fighters are conservative and right wing, right?
Okay.
There's a reason for that, because masculinity and conservatism are obviously correlated.
No, it was super base when Charles Oliveira ignored Donald Trump at that one fight. I don't think all of them are super right wing, but.
I mean, generally speaking.
You pay for 5 says Magnificent Matt Nuclear, aka Diamond Girl. What's Diamond Girl? Any idea?
Oh, Diamond Girl is a supporter of mine. She joins my TikTok live. She's a very big supporter, so I know.
Nice. Well, cool. Blaine says for the goal, 1, 2, 3, and another 50 from Blaine. Thank you very much, Blaine. I appreciate the generous donations, my friend. Much appreciated. Declared Penguino for 5 says, from my noodle budget.
For all the people, by the way, in the chat who are in the YouTube chat, for the left wingers in there who are saying I'm not masculine, I did wrestle in high school, and actually still have clips of me actually wrestling. Wrestling is a combat sport where you're grabbing a man, taking him down, and literally controlling him. So the idea.
Have you boxed before, Matt?
Have I lost in wrestling before?
No, have you boxed before? Like
not specifically boxed necessarily, but I have. I mean, yeah. Actually, you know what would be better than just a boxing match? We should do an MMA fight. MMA. No, we should do an MMA fight. No, not just hands. Everything in there.
Sure.
Adam.
Let me learn jiu-jitsu and we'll run it.
MMA. Let's do
referee. All right.
It doesn't matter if it's informal. We have to run it.
I like it. Rallian for 10 says the Jan 6s were led into the Capitol and clearly used by deep state operatives. Trump pardoned them because it is better that 100 guilty go free than one innocent suffer. Maybe that one is pointed at you, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, if Trump wanted to, he could have just said, I'm only pardoning people that were convicted of nonviolent offenses, and people that were convicted of seditious conspiracy against the United States are not going to get pardoned. I know there's been like a lot of right-wing talking points about like, 200 plainclothes FBI agents, they were there in the crowd. They showed up after to like investigate. I mean, there were pipe bombs found there. People showed up with guns. There were plenty of threats worth investigating from the FBI. So I don't really buy this idea like the deep state. Trump, I guess, couldn't stop. Like when he tweeted, someone do something about this, the Biden FBI caused January 6th when I was president. I don't really buy the logic behind that, but.
Yep. Shelley Anderson said, ask Adam how Biden got 16 million more votes than all Democrats, including Obama.
We had much higher voter participation because, I mean, we expanded vote by mail and people were stuck at home. If you're stuck at home, don't have much to do, you're paying more attention to politics, more likely to vote. I know a lot of people who voted for the first time in 2020, so it makes sense that you had a higher turnout there.
Just Gerald, the last one here, unless somebody else comes in, says, you keep saying threats. What about actions? We can show 25 examples of actual violence from the left for each example of violence from the right.
I take issue with categorizations of left versus right because a lot of these people who you guys would say are like, oh, left Antifa crazy people, they're not exactly Chuck Schumer fans or Hakeem Jeffrey fans. When you're talking
they're more
about the
extreme.
actual political parties, and the Democratic Party, I think, has been much more steadfast in condemning political violence on both sides, whereas the Republican Party under Trump seems to pick and choose when it's time to condemn that.
Another one comes in here from Hellbat, says, I got my ID renewed this month after going through the process a couple hours, then a temp paper to give time for the renewed ID to arrive by mail. So I think that's saying it's easy to get it done, I guess.
Cool.
All right, gentlemen. Well, that rounds it up for this. If you guys want to just let everybody know where they can find you, what you got coming up, starting with you, Adam.
Yeah, you can just find me if you look up Adam Khan on TikTok. My account should come up, and then my link tree is in my bio there. That's going to have all my other stuff: Instagram, YouTube, Twitter.
Matt?
You guys can find me on TikTok. I do TikTok live debates all the time. You guys can find me on X at Matt Nuclear, 1TX, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all of it.
All right. I thought it was a good debate, guys. Appreciate you both coming on, and I'll see you guys in the boxing ring.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
MMA ring. Let's get it.
MMA. See you later.
Yeah.
All right.
All righty. What did we think, guys? Good debate. Should get some other ones coming up over the next week or so as well. Over the next 2 weeks, we should have some Wilson debates hopefully coming up. Now, we've got an hour and 10 left to go in the goal. I wonder if we could do a slight grift more. You know? Because we've been away for a little while, haven't caught up with you guys in a while. Maybe just a quick grift here. Who have we got? We've got a bunch of left. We've got Beef Sleazy and Dano and some of the regular crew. Blaine Pasashik's in here. Just Gerald's in here. Mojo Matsy. Not bad, guys. Not a bad crew. Might just do a little 5-minute grift here. Maybe just a little 5-minute grift, hey? Now, I don't know if we're going to reach the goal. As you can see, I'm in the Wilson lair at the moment. It's tough, guys. It's tough here. Rachel's been making me dinner every night. Got my own place here. Got my own streaming setup. Fridge is full of all different beverages that I need. It's tough. Lots of nice fruit in the fridge and everything that I eat. Say a prayer for me, guys. Last night, Andrew and I watched a movie. What was it called again? It started with an R. Someone's going to have to tell me the movie in the chat. It starts with an R, and it is Matthew McConaughey, and it's like the detective is trying to find a serial killer, and they use the axe, and then his dad is like trying to hunt demons. His dad's trying to hunt demons, and there's the axe that he kills them with says Otis on it. It's one word. It starts with an R. I can't remember what it was, but Andrew and I watched that last night in the gaming room. It's tough, guys. We've got a game. Me and Chase Haggard have been playing FIFA every night. Watching movies. Frailty, that's the one. Well done, Retro Bit. Everybody was like right there. Frailty. Yeah. No, it's been tough though, guys. Say a prayer for me. All right, we got one grift in at least. Sam comes in and gives a $5 and just says, oh, okay, I feel sorry for you, Rattlesnake. More head comes in. Only 5 minutes, that's pretty gay. Hold it hostage until you hit the goal. That's what the Grift King would do. Well, we're going to have good culture streams over the weekend, guys. It's Thursday today, and I'm hoping to have Friday, Saturday, Sunday doing good culture streams, debates, reviewing different things that have been happening around the world. So this one, because it was a debate stream and everything, obviously it's just a little bit more sort of difficult to get people into the stream, but we'll do a culture stream probably this time tomorrow. So anyways, guys, I am going to go and have some dinner. Gonna get dinner made for me again. It's a lot of work. So I'll speak to you all later. See you tomorrow.